And not if we don't see each other for a while.
I thought you weren't worried.
Why tell things? Just until the suspicion dies.
Given up the ghost, and I am interested in still using that machine because it's a wonderful bridge between the old and the new. Well, I'm looking for a modern monitor that could work with that. I've had a little advice from Apple community, and there's an attachment that attaches from the Power Mac to, oh, I forget what you call it, the VGA, the VGA.
Okay.
And I
Is
ordered
that what
that.
your Power Mac has, the VGA adapter on it? Is that what it has? Or
It has
a dedicated
the
Apple?
older DB15, I think.
Okay, all right.
But I've mail ordered the adapter, and it hasn't arrived yet because they advise me shipping is slow these days.
Right.
But the monitor, that's what I'm thinking about, and I'm not sure what your advice would be as to would a flat panel work on it?
Sure. As long as you can get the right adapter for it, that should be no problem. And
Well,
almost all the flat panels will work with multiple frequencies, so that shouldn't be an issue.
I've heard something about refresh rate, and I'm supposed to get a small monitor. Is that an issue?
No, you shouldn't even notice it. It shouldn't even be anything. It's more of an issue for television where you've got constantly moving stuff than it is for a computer monitor.
Yeah, I've been looking at the stores, and they don't have small monitors. 17 is the tiniest, but they're all in the 20s, 20-inch monitors.
Yeah.
So you see no problem, huh?
I don't see any, and you can always get something smaller off of like Amazon or it's one of the services that have it shipped to you. So.
Okay. Well, that was I'm not good on computers, and that computer, especially the floppy drive, works from old floppies, and you can convert them into new.
Good.
I mean, I don't know how to say it. It's a bridge machine from the old to the new.
Sure. Well, Roger, you picked the right group. None of us are good on computers.
Oh, you're geniuses, you guys.
Well, when I did it when I did it for a business, it was a little different. But now that it's just me occasionally kind of stuff, boy, it's amazing how fast you forget this crap because it just changes so quickly.
Yeah. Especially if you're.
Yeah, I still have my old G4 tower.
Come to think of it, I think mine's a G4 tower also, and a 25-inch CRT.
Oh.
I've been using laptops for the last 9 years, something like that, and I never even go in there anymore. I mean, it was bad.
Does your CRT still work?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, mine changed into weird lines. Weird. Anyway, I gave up on it.
Yeah, one of these days I'm just gonna call You Got Junk and have them come by and pick the stuff up and just take it out of here. It's just not worth fooling with anymore. I mean,
well,
back then I was so desperate for storage space. I've got like one or two 1 gig drives that are manually screwed into a bottom plate held inside the box just because that was all that was available at the time, and I got them for like virtually nothing. So.
Well, Steve sold me a desktop, so it's fairly complex.
Sure.
Compact. Well, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Morning, Don. How you doing today? He doesn't hear me. That's okay. So, is Diana? Diana is who's the president of SRC at the moment?
David Wilkins. He's up in Palmdale.
Okay.
He served before, but he's been really good.
Good.
Stuart is still mainly running the software. And
yeah, I still get the emails from that. So
he's updated, and he's been working on combining and cleaning up and whatever, because he's kind of cobbled stuff together over the years. And
yeah,
but it's the system that he set up for being able to judge online, and like I can go in and review, and he's got automatic templates that I can just click on what somebody's done wrong, and it
Very
creates
nice.
an email, and so it's a good system.
That's good. Glad to hear that.
We need to get backup though. More people that understand what it is. That's the problem. But yeah, council's still going. We had switched to only 2 actual meetings a year, and of course this year it's been all Zoom meetings. So
Yeah, but that works out okay.
yeah, it works out fine. But it's just Zoom lets you put backgrounds down now, except that was one of the reasons is my operating system won't let me. So I guess I got to get to High Sierra before it will let me.
Oh, really? The operating system itself wouldn't? Huh. You're doing the virtual backgrounds from within the Zoom application itself, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So
I do it, and what happens is about half my head disappears. So
yeah.
it's because
Yeah,
I've got such a cluttered looking background. I mean, for a while I was using a green screen, and we moved some junk around in it.
I think yours is cluttered. Look at mine. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I've got black plastic over that window because I've done too many Zoom, and that's the only way I could.
The glare's too heavy. Yeah, yeah.
The glare was too heavy. So,
Yeah.
but and of course, I don't know how you're doing with smoke down there, but it's pretty bad up here right now.
This time around we've been very fortunate. We haven't even had the smoke smell. I mean, everything's yellow outside when you go outside through all the smoke cover, but we've been very fortunate from that standpoint. We drove to Alaska 2 years ago, and we were back like one day, and the fires broke out about 1.5 miles from our house here, and we had bought a used 25-foot Class C motorhome in Vermont, and flew to Vermont and drove it back, and then 8 months later went with the group and drove it to Alaska. And we got back here, and I said, well, they're asking us to evacuate the area. So Marcia got in her Camry, and I got in the RV, and we went over to my mom's house in Fountain Valley, and we stayed there for the next 4 days. So I said, the house can burn down, but hell, I want to get a little use out of this motorhome before it goes. So that worked out good because we had our own place to sleep, and we hadn't taken all the junk out of it yet. So
Can you hear me?
yeah.
Great.
Morning, Janine. Morning.
Hi. Listen, I'm under a level 3 evacuation.
Really?
So I'm,
Alert from calendar.
Yeah,
OACC monthly meeting.
I may have to leave at any moment.
Okay.
I'm packing, I left the house 2 days ago because it's still level 3. And I went to a friend's, but I came back to take care of my animals, and then I may have to leave again. I'm in the Shady Cove level 3 evacuation here, so I'm just trying to get ready for that. I do have a couple questions, and I may have to go at any minute. So
Okay.
all right.
Good.
Okay. The first question is, the junk emails, when you can specify something as junk. For some reason, it doesn't seem to work. I just, let's say it's Bob's Sporting Goods or whatever.
Okay.
I keep getting emails from Bob's Sporting Goods, even though I designate them as junk. Can you tell me why, or what I can do about
there's
it?
about a dozen different reasons. First off, the junk filtering, I think, on the Mac over the last 4 or 5 years has been garbage compared to what it used to be. But that's
Yeah.
also because they've gotten more sophisticated at what they do. One of the tricks, it has to be able to read the text. So it has to be in text format. One of the tricks that a lot of them do is they'll take a screen snapshot, and in there where it's coming from or whatever, that will be an image rather than text. So consequently, it can't parse the image, and it doesn't know what it is.
Okay.
So that's the most common. That's the most common stunt. There are emails. I find out about half the time. I'll go down there and click. I've never subscribed to these, so they're coming off of a junk mailing list somewhere along the line. I'll go down there and click on unsubscribe. I think that makes it worse sometimes.
Yeah.
I think they realize, oh, this one's legit. Let's send more junk to this idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that a long time ago.
The unsubscribe thing.
the unsubscribe thing, yeah.
So, all right, you just keep deleting them and there's no help for it then.
Well, the only other thing you can do is create yourself a brand new. You can have multiple Mac accounts. That's not a problem. Create yourself a new account with
Yeah.
whatever service you want to use, and slowly start transitioning everybody over to that, and eventually drop it off. But eventually they'll catch up to you. So.
Yeah, I know that they just seem to be very sneaky about finding my emails, even when I don't give it out there. Okay, the second question I have is how do I read or convert an .avi file? I have tried going I downloaded something called Prism that was supposed to be able to read the files, but that's no help.
Hey, Terry? Uh,
The old versions of QuickTime, the current QuickTime doesn't do it.
The lady
For
that
a
was
reason they
talking,
did.
she
Excuse me,
someplace, and that's to leave pretty soon.
can you
Level
mute
3
your microphone?
evacuation.
Takes care of that. Sorry, I've muted you. The older versions of QuickTime, before they came out with the so-called QuickTime Pro, QuickTime 7 was the last version that did it. You could spend $20 or whatever and get the ability to convert it literally into dozens of formats. A lot of times QuickTime will let you do that anyway. If QuickTime can open up the AVI file,
It can't.
all right.
Tried it.
But then what you can do is you can do a Google search. I forget what it is, but you can do a Google search on QuickTime space AVI open options. And there's 2 or 3 different plugins out there that are extensions to QuickTime that will let you get back to the way that
Okay,
used to
so
work.
it was QuickTime. Say that again. QuickTime.
QuickTime space AVI extensions.
Greg,
Yeah.
I found that the app VLC opens a lot of things.
Opens, yes, but it usually doesn't let you save them though.
Oh, okay.
So if that's what you're looking to be able to do, Janine, where you want to be able to actually save them as an MP4 or an M4V or whatever it happens to be, VLC will open it up and let you play it, but it won't let you save it.
All right. Well, that's when I did it first. When I first did a search, it recommended that this little app called Prism would do it, but it's junk. I can't get it to. It can't read the format. So.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Prism.
Okay, I'm not either now.
Well,
Gene,
okay, Bob just sent out something regarding Audacity. I think that's only for audio files.
Yeah, that's correct.
Janine,
Yeah.
are you near Portland where the big fire
No,
is?
I'm near Medford. There was a huge fire in Ashland, which is about 20 miles away, that spread into Medford. But then, excuse me, I'm at the trying to think, Obenstein, fire.
I have relatives in Central Point. Have you heard about that town?
I don't know how to respond to that.
Go to sleep.
What?
Hold on. I'm just muting this microphone here because it was trying to help me out. Okay.
I've got relatives in Central Point.
Oh, well, I hope they're all right because it's wiped out most of Talent. And the whole area there is basically part of it is just gone. I'm in at the Obenstein fire, I think it's called South Obenstein. Anyway, we've been in a level 3 evacuation for almost a week there. I'm home right now because I needed to come home and take care of my animals. But it's still so smoky you can hardly see across the river there. The only bit of hope that I have is now the smoke is now lighter. And if I'm across from a mountain, so if the fire starts to come down the mountain, I'm out of here. So we'll see how it goes. I'm just trying to take care of my dog. Took a 15-foot fall.
Somewhat
Wow.
temporary.
And so he is in a bad way. And I'm just trying to stay positive here. And, if the fire comes, then I'm out of here, and I'll be back in touch when I can.
Well,
It's the
good
only thing you
luck.
can't do. I know when 2 years ago, after our Alaska trip, we got back and we've had fires in the Anaheim Hills areas before, but it never was as close as a mile and a half.
Yeah,
And this was the only time since we've been living up here for 25, 26 years that we've ever had to evacuate. And they did the broadcast over the Anaheim alert system over the phone.
yeah,
And then eventually they go around door to door. Eventually it gets down to that. And the problem was we had everything we really need. When we grabbed a few papers, that was about it, and made sure our computers were in the motorhome. The real problem was getting out of Anaheim Hills. It took
Yeah.
us 2 hours to drive like 4 miles.
yeah,
And and a lot of people moaned and groaned about it, why they didn't take and block off both sides of the traffic, because everybody was exiting, hardly anybody was going the other direction. Why they didn't designate, they've now since put up evacuation route signs, like they do for floods, although we're at about 80, 90 feet. But so it should be a little bit better than what it used to be, but all I know is
have
it
a
took
one-way
forever to
out.
get out of here.
There's our main highway, which is Highway 62, is blocked off. And so I'd have to go the back route. But I keep hoping after all this time that they're going to drop it down to a level 2 so that I can stay. But I just have to stay very alert. And so I'm gonna be listening in as much as I can while I'm packing.
There
There.
you go.
Okay.
All
So
right.
best of everything to all of you guys, and I'll be back as soon as I can.
Robert, I see that you're on. Are you available to talk? Amitai?
Yes. Thank you, Greg. Yes.
One of
Ginny,
the, Ginny, go ahead. Go ahead, Robert.
when you mention level 3, that's kind of foreign language to most other people outside the area. But as I understand it, your level 3 means that you should be gone, actually, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, just trying to let everybody else understand. A level 2 means get ready, and level 3 means get out of there. So,
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
all right, Greg, what you got?
Well, she was asking earlier. She's got some AVI files that she'd like to convert over to something that QuickTime will work with, that the current version of QuickTime will work with. You got any recommendations for conversion software or extensions or anything?
No, extending QuickTime is about as much as I've had to do with that kind of stuff. So you were
Yeah, like I said,
No, this is the guy that's smart. He's the smartest.
Well, if
Yeah,
necessary,
okay.
I'll call Apple, see what they have to
there you
say.
go. There you go.
Okay, guys, wish you the best. I'll be back. I'm gonna listen, and I'll be in periodically when I can.
Okay, Janine, good luck.
Thanks.
Take care, and start packing, my dear.
I am.
Best
Thanks.
wishes on
Put it on video.
Okay, let me send this.
So how's everything been, Robert?
Pretty good actually. I'm getting hot and heavy actually into a lot more database programming than I have in the past, and having quite a bit of fun with it, with some of the new advanced features of that are out there, taking advantage of new technologies. It often ends up being a lot around marketing and that kind of thing. And my first task was Oregon based, and I was attempting to we downloaded the license, the liquor license from the Oregon state of Oregon, and then we were plotting those onto maps. And I think there's as many liquor licenses in Oregon as there are coffee shops. So
Wow.
Yeah, well, with all the draft beer and all that kind of stuff. I mean,
Right.
you could find beer in a in a hair salon or in a, just about anywhere you go. And so it's been interesting and fun and trying to take advantage of that kind of thing, or allowing people to market better. Somebody will, in a large database, a guy on his feet will be standing at a certain location, and he enters that location and enters in a radius of a half mile or whatever, and it brings up all of the liquor licenses within that range. So you can do, boots on the ground marketing and that kind of stuff. So technology allows us lots of ease of use and making good use of our tools.
Hey, Robert, I've got an interesting situation. A couple of days ago, I thought I had gone into terminal and I had changed something, and I can't remember what I changed. It's not causing a problem, but I thought, well, I want to take this back to normal again now. So I couldn't remember what the hell it was that I changed in terminal. I don't know why I didn't write it down. I'm usually pretty good about that. So I thought, well, no big deal. I'll load a new operating system. I'm running Catalina. I'll just load a new version of Catalina. And went through and did file system check, or excuse me, I did disk utility. That took forever. And but finally, when that cleared up and it went to download the operating system, it came up and said it couldn't find my Wi-Fi access. And it didn't even prompt me for a Wi-Fi name or a password. It just said you have no internet access. Yeah, as soon as I rebooted it back to normal, no problem. I couldn't figure out, and it was getting late at night because I was going to start this. So I knew it was going to take a while. I was going to start this, and I thought, well, I'll just do it over this way. Otherwise, I'll go get the 100-foot Ethernet cable and physically plug it in again if I have to. That's new. I haven't seen that issue before, where you don't get to a stage and it either takes your default, reads your files and takes your default one that you've been using, or at least prompts you for Wi-Fi access and a Wi-Fi password. Got any suggestions on that one?
Wow, you come with lots of different tentacles going on here. With regard to the console, we'll start at the beginning as I remember it. You said you altered console and you wanted to get it back to the way it was. Did you check in your library for your preferences to see?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I couldn't find it, and
Okay.
I can't remember what was something specific I did. Like I notoriously will disable caps lock. Of course, they have that built in, but it used to be that I had to go into terminal to be able to disable caps lock.
Okay.
Way back when, but that wasn't it.
Okay.
And one of the issues I'm running across right now is I used to be able to do about 130, 140 words a minute typing.
Okay.
Now I'm looking to do about 30 or 40 because the arthritis has gotten so bad in my fingers that I'm hitting multiple keys. So I'm really paying attention to what I'm typing up. And apparently I'll be just typing in some text. All of a sudden the system preferences will pop up. And so some kind of a shortcut I put in, and I've gone through and looked at all the ones that are available in the list, that there's some weird keyboard combination that I'm hitting that's causing system preferences to pop up, yet I see nothing showing system preferences for a shortcut. All the possible ones that are available through the Mac GUI don't show anything. So I thought, well, okay, no big deal. I'll just reload the operating system because maybe something I did before caused that to happen. That's bugging me more than anything else.
I hear you. Yeah, there are many undocumented shortcuts, and yeah, you could certainly be hitting one of those. You really get in there with reloading a new operating system, but I guess if something bugs you to that extent, sure.
Well, it's on my counter to the extreme left.
So there you go. Thank you, Greg.
Yep.
Then you moved on, though. After you did the operating system, did you say your Wi-Fi access point alone was not displaying in the list?
There was no list. A message just came up and said, there is no internet access, no Wi-Fi access. Obviously, it brightened up to, I've got a 16-inch MacBook Pro like you, Robert.
Right.
And I'm sure I've got multiple USB-C to USB-A, USB 3 adapters. And so I'm sure I've still got a physical Ethernet, USB 3 to Ethernet somewhere in the mess of junk around here. I just didn't think about it at the time. I just thought, well, hell, although it's not going to be that much slower at this time at night, coming off the internet. What do I care? I'm going to bed. Nothing. As soon as it would finally boot up. And by the way, this is new. I've noticed in this version, at least in Catalina, when you hold down the command R for the reboot stage, it actually goes through. You get a white screen, kind of a flash on the screen, and then it goes through like another reboot. I don't know if that's getting into one of those hidden partitions that Apple uses. What? I know they're supposed to change that structure completely in Big Sur and make it to where you'll be able to recover right off your own a hidden partition on your own Mac, which makes a lot of sense. But for whatever reason, normally you'd get to a stage when you'd go to, it would come up and it would ask you what disk you want to put it on, all that kind of baloney. Usually you'd get a prompt somewhere along the line and it says, okay, here's the best Wi-Fi, type in the password. Because I can understand it's not bright at this point. It doesn't know what password you're using. So I always keep it on my phone in a hidden file just in case I forget. And it never gets to that stage. It just comes up, there's no Wi-Fi access, nothing, can't do nothing except reboot the computer back into normal.
Okay. So I thought it was after you'd already booted that when you used your Wi-Fi menu that you
No.
Okay, got it.
That seems to work okay. It's just there's no option to get to Wi-Fi from the Command R rebuild.
So in the installation process, it normally detects the local Wi-Fi networks to allow you to select one of them to continue and the install process, while also taking advantage of Wi-Fi connectivity to other devices that might be on that network.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. It sounds like you really do a whole lot more installs than I to start off here. Yeah, I would have been right where you're at. I fortunately carry, good or bad, I carry 3 or 4 different USB-C to Ethernet converters because they're kind of particular, if you will.
Right.
And that would have been the quickest fix because why it chose not to detect the network, I don't know. It is rather particular in what it selects though, because in my past, what I have seen is that it kind of knows, it selects from those Wi-Fi networks that it sees for those that you typically already have passwords enabled. So there may be, when you fully boot, in your Wi-Fi menu, you may have a dozen different Wi-Fi networks, but if you've not connected to any of them, then it will not present those as an option.
Right, I realize that. I know you can manually go through and delete them out of the list if you really want to, but it'll remember like the iPhone's notorious as you're driving down the street and it picks up open Wi-Fi's or whatever, it'll add them to the list,
Right, as an option that you might allow that to be. But so anyways, if it does not see it, you really don't have an option at that point other than to go and grab an Ethernet connection.
Yeah, if I didn't know any better, Robert, I'd say this is a screw up on Apple's part.
Well, at that point, they're really, it is simplified. They are trying to make it as easy as possible. But it is far from perfect for those situations when it's not a standard procedure. In other words, you might be trying to recover to a time machine backup that's on an external NAS drive or some type of thing. And so all of those different situations, and then you'll have to be picking from multiple versions of time machine backups for it to recognize it. And it's not going to necessarily be recognizing pre-Catalina backups because they're different. They're giving them a different name, extension rather. So there are transition comes with pain often. Yeah, no doubt.
I don't know if anybody's been paying attention to, I mean, I read most of the junk that shows up on YouTube from 9 to 5 or from Renee Ritchie or from any of the other Mac pundits. And apparently this upcoming meeting, this coming Wednesday, I believe, of next week, it looks to me like they're not going to talk about iPhones at all. It looks to me like they're about a month out from iPhone delivery. So they're going to take a pause. They might be doing a just one more thing kind of a deal. But the rumors are that they're not going to talk about iPhone probably till October. And they also don't want to kill whatever iPhone 11 sales are still left, which I totally understand that. But it looks like they're going to be talking about the new Apple Watch Series 6. They'll obviously be talking about the operating systems for Watch OS, tvOS, for iPad, and also for Mac. They might show a Apple silicon-based Mac, but chances are they probably won't. But there's a lot of rumors floating out there that the rumored so-called Apple eyeglasses may show up. I doubt it. I think they'd want to wait until they could actually get people with hands-on that one, because that's so different. But it looks like besides the Apple Watch 6, there's going to be an Apple Watch Special Edition, which is a stripped-down version of the Apple Watch 4. So it'll be worth watching, if not watching it live, watching it after the fact later, just to see what the new stuff's going to be. Got any insight to what you think is going to happen?
I think you're talking about the event on Tuesday.
Tuesday, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it'll be 10 o'clock
Right.
our time. It distinctly it seems to be centered around the watch. I agree, and it typically they're doing iPhones at the same time, but we're always trying to base our insights on very little information, and so the best we know is that yes, watches are there, and some say phones are there, and some say not. But beyond that, really don't know.
Yeah. So anybody out there have any issues or anything we can talk about? Maybe we can get you more screwed up than you are right now. That's my specialty.
I have an issue on a monitor.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So this is a fairly new Mac Mini. I ordered it last November. It was delivered January, February of this year. I have a 27-inch LG flat screen. This is supposed to be an exact type of monitor that Apple typically sells, but it was a little higher price, so I went directly with LG. It's compatible with the Mac. I'm very pleased with it. However, I've been having a problem. I can't say if it was really from the start, but I've been having it for quite a long time. So what happens is the screen just blacks out. It goes into black, and all the processes seem to work. I can come up to a button, and when the screen goes black, I can click the mouse, and the button gets pushed. So everything seems to be normal except for the monitor blacking out. I've tried rebooting the system without extensions. That didn't seem to solve the problem. One thing that I am doing now to help me through is to actually do a shutdown and then a startup from cold. And then that seems to work for quite some time. But I can't be sure, but it seems like when it goes into screen save, when it comes back, it seems to be a little less stable at that point. And it's almost dependable that I can start seeing that screen blacking out again until I shut down and start it up again. That's my situation.
What operating system are you running, Bob?
Catalina, most recent.
Okay. And well, the first thing I'd do, since you say it might be being affected by the screensaver, I would go in and disable the screensaver.
Okay.
And then run it for a day or two or whatever, and see if that's made any difference at all. Any suggestions, Robert?
Wow. Yes, you have the right place to start there. It sounds like it could be a software issue. I would go out and check to see. I'm a little bit familiar with the monitor that you prescribed, because Apple, I believe, was selling that monitor in their stores for the high-end Mac Pros. And then I think they discontinued selling that one. But so I would do a Google search on that because it sounds as much like an operating system kind of thing, like similar to when you close the lid of a Mac Portable and then you open it up. Often that can be set to then open to awaken the screen and open the login and all the different stuff. And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the mere act of closing it again and then opening it up again, bingo, now it starts working. So it's a switch on the MacBook, on the Mac portables that close the lid. It is so it is all that kind of thing that puts your Mac to sleep and then wakes it up. The fact but I was distracted by the fact that you said you could interact with the screen even though it's dark. And that thereby, again, takes me back to the software issue. So it is a tougher issue because I'm going to doubt that it is a sharp issue, but more of an operating system. And that's why I'm kind of hoping, for whatever it's worth, that you have some luck with a Google search on that.
How about diagnostic tools, something that I can run that checks processes so that when it goes blank, I can have that open, and then when it comes up again, realize what processes just took place and try to alleviate it by either reloading that portion of the software, or I'm really not sure what diagnostic tools I have available for me.
Well, I love your willingness to dig into this. The path that you would go, I can understand that from a developer perspective that he might want to do that, but you're not going to have the ability to load specific aspects of the operating system that might fix this. And reloading bad code, if it is that, which it could well be, is reloading bad code isn't going to get you anywhere. And so the fact that it is a random type of thing, it just sounds like a bug, personally, in the operating system that I think you will perhaps find other people sharing along with you.
So what you're saying is do some research in Google, find people out there with the problems and kind of piggyback on their solutions.
Well, their solutions or their advice or their knowledge that the submission has already been submitted. In fact, how long have you had this Mac?
I received it about January, February, earlier this year.
Then you're distinctly in an AppleCare situation. And Apple has an amazing knowledge base that give AppleCare a call, and they will tell you probably that it's a known issue, and the engineers will know about it, and a fix will happen in the future.
Okay.
You've done a great job of defining the problem, and you put in. They will put in the computer, the operating system, and the type of monitor, and they'll tell you, slam down what's going on with it. It's rarely, do recognize, you're rarely the first person that's ever discovered it.
Well, sometimes stuff is just like, it's so deep. Let me give you an example, if I may. Plantonics. I got one of those Wi-Fi, what is it?
Bluetooth headphones?
Yeah. Just an earbud kind of a thing. And I kept getting, I think I looked at some diagnostic tool that's part of the OS, and it kept saying that Plantonics was trying to do something over and over again. So I did a little research on the internet on that. And they said, well, oh yeah, we've got this problem. Plantonics is aware of it, but they haven't solved it. It's a memory leak or something. So this troubleshooting process is very, very involved, very time consuming, but I like your idea of the AppleCare. That would work out nice.
Yeah,
Look in chat. My son just posted a link to Mac Rumors on what you're talking about. It's a known problem with the Mac Mini.
Yeah, if you look down in chat, Jay, Frank's son, posted that, and I went over and took a look at it. They're having now blank screen. I don't know if that means black or white, but it might be a place to start.
I'll do that. Thank you very much for that contact.
Yeah, I had a
Thanks, Jay.
problem with my monitor not showing up. I'm running a Sierra on a mid 2014 MacBook Pro, and I ran this diagnostic thing called ONYX, ONYX. Run that, and then after I ran that, the monitor showed up. So it's a big.
Now, Phil, is this a secondary monitor or the actual laptop screen?
No, the laptop screen showed up fine. The secondary monitor would not show up. My
Okay.
Samsung SyncMaster 243T would
And
not
Onyx
show up.
solved and running Onyx solved that, because that's a freebie.
Yeah.
Onyx is a good general purpose
Yeah, I
utility.
ran that, and then the monitor would show up. So that didn't really solve the problem. It just repeatedly, particularly if I'm careless and not when I shut down the computer, if I don't suitably disable all the hard drives and put them away before I shut down. If I shut
Really?
down,
Part of their shutdown should be to do that for you automatically.
well, I have to. It should, but it does. It doesn't. I have to do it manually. You click on the hard drive and then it says
You
disable.
basically got to eject them all, yeah.
Eject.
Right.
Eject hard drive. Yeah, I have to be sure I eject my hard drives before I put the computer to sleep. Otherwise, this problem shows up again. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's a new one. I've never heard of that issue before.
Yeah, certain drives will do not eject properly automatically. Some of the Drobos, etc., will remain attached if you just close your lid and that kind of stuff. And then when you open back up in a different location, they're unable to connect, and you'll get an error and saying, "Hey, do you want to eject this drive? Do you want to forget this drive?" kind of thing.
Hey, Bart, are you out there?
Yeah, I'm right here. How
Okay.
are
Have
you?
you good? Have you heard anything more about Bruce's situation?
No, I haven't. I ought to give him a. I'll give him. I'm going to give him a call later on today. That's a good point.
I know Kathy sent out something about 4 or 5 days ago or whatever, saying that they were still waiting for the latest results.
Yeah, and I wasn't
and
sure. I wasn't sure whether that was a recent post or an old post. There wasn't a date on it, and it sounds like another post that I'd gotten some time ago. So.
Okay, appreciate it. For those of you who don't know, is Bruce Brown, who was the club vice president and treasurer for years, and also with SMOG, had extensive cancer. And I forget exactly what kind, but he weathered through it relatively well a couple of years back and been doing really well. And then the oncologist, they spotted something here not too long ago. And so they're going back in for another bout, probably with chemo and everything else. But he's been responding pretty well for it. So
thank you, babe.
Yeah, actually what happened, the original cancer was bone cancer, and they did a bone marrow transplant of his own bone marrow, and it worked beautifully. He hasn't had that come back, but this time around he had a problem in one of his joints or something, if I recall correctly. So it's a different kind of cancer now, from at least from last report.
God love him.
Hi,
Crap to
Robert.
have to go
Haven't
through that
seen you
stuff.
around for quite a while.
You know, unfortunately, these Zoom meetings create conflicts. I'm supposed to be in another Zoom meeting in a little while, and so I'm going to do the dance of figuring out where it is that I need to put my resources. So, yeah, everything is gone. Instead of having a meeting elsewhere, people are creating them, and I'm not sure. We have to be a little more creative in the creation of times, because so anyways, yeah. But I'm always glad to be here when I can.
Well, I mean, last month was because of some family issues on my end. We pushed the meeting back we pushed our monthly meeting back a week, and I know you have a conflict on the third Wednesday, the third Saturday, so that we ended up losing you for that one.
Right, and I was just up in prior to the fires happening. You know, as we get more progeny, we get more places that we need to visit. So I was up in Oregon last week for a month and did some camping with my grandson. So, anyways, we do get pulled in different directions more often these days.
Yeah.
Anyway, so audio and videos.
There we go. Thank you, Greg.
Yep.
Again, you know, let's anybody else have any issues that they been dealing with recently? Let's see if we can knock some stuff down.
Yeah, I've got one thing. It's not really an issue, but something I want to point out to the members if you don't know about it. I'm on the mailing list from MacMost, and every week they send links to various videos on Mac issues, and the videos are excellent. And I've been learning a lot from them. Just last week, they had a video, it was a rare one. It wasn't on the Mac, it was on Zoom. And they had about 20 different functions in Zoom that most people don't know are even there, and how to access them and so forth. And they get into a lot of detail about some stuff, and it's a great way to learn things about your Mac that you probably don't know.
Yeah, I wish I'd have bought some stock in Zoom a few months back. It's gone up about 400% since like March, I think they said.
Yeah, I thought I was going to do quite well when my Apple stock split, and it went up for a few days, and now it's going down in the dumps.
Yeah, but you know what? The whole Dow is doing that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Even
Berkshire Hathaway is going down.
That's right. So I mean, that's temporary. It's going to come back. You know, I mean.
You know what, Jim Cramer?
My wife gets all freaked about that. I says, you know, it only counts when you have to get rid of it.
Yeah. What old Jim Cramer says is, don't trade Apple, own it. Stick with it. Just own Apple, don't trade it.
Yeah, as much as I like our financial gal, every time she sees it, she goes, you know, you guys are really heavy in Apple stock. I mean, maybe you ought to think about, and I told her when we saw her about a month and a half ago, I said, well, I think it's going to split here. This is before they made the announcement. I said, I think it's about due time for it to split, because people like it when it's down around that $100, $130, $140 a share.
Yeah.
Crap. And so I said, we'll wait. She's recommending that we take about 10 or 15% of what we have and put it in something more that gives dividends, a little bit better dividends than what Apple does. And we'll probably do that later in the year, but they got too many things going on right now. So,
well, if you don't like Apple because it's a high price, and there are some options such as Amazon.
It's true. Another good one would have been good to have owned a few shares of that.
Well, and I say that because the shares of Amazon are trading at $3,000 right now.
That's insane money.
Well, it's all a matter they've just not chosen to split. I mean, there's several companies that just don't split. The belief is that, as Greg was saying, that it is split often to allow people to mentally purchase it, because you could purchase a half of share of something.
Yeah, I think you can buy as low as as small as a tenth of a share, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, but psychologically, people want
a real share.
Right. But
those shares, those various stocks that have shares that are going at thousands of dollars a share, my guess is that eventually they'll do what Berkshire Hathaway did, and they'll basically break into A shares and B shares so that they have some shares out there at a lower value people can buy, and then have the high value stocks, principally institutional investors, go for those.
it's all a big emotional thing. You know, I want to go back to the Zoom thought there, and looking to see what Greg has learned, because we are more of a Zoom world than previous. I've heard that we have the option to have people in a waiting room.
Yeah,
before
I turned that feature off this morning.
Okay.
That's
right.
something they added. They've always had a waiting room of sorts, and the default now is, because there were so many people complaining about holes and things like that in Zoom, that literally anybody could get in. Just to let you know, at this point in time, I don't restrict anybody out. I haven't had anybody abuse it, so I haven't worried about it. But here, about 3 or 4 versions back, so I'd say probably March or February, they started with the waiting room bit, and I wasn't so diligent about staying up on top of all the little in-between changes that were coming out. So automatically, whenever you clicked on that link, you went into the waiting room, and I got a pop-up at this end that took me away from doing something else to allow you to come in. That's great if you're having that issue. But this morning, and I permanently turned that feature off, and this morning I loaded a new version of Zoom. I don't know what the update did, but I put a new version on here, and that feature was turned back on. So there's now a security button. I don't know if it's on everybody's, but there's now a security button down here on the host that gives you the option to disable the waiting room or enable the waiting room per session. So immediately this morning, after I sent the link out, I disabled the waiting room. So let everybody come in, and if we have an issue down the road, I can always boot you out on the fly, permanently, temporarily, whichever. But I haven't worried about it. So
Greg, before you bring up the meeting, you know, where you have along the top your normal pull-down menus for Zoom, yeah. They've always had the option to disable it there ahead of time. And also when you set up the meeting, if you go to that things where it says advanced options, there's 3 things that you can click there. And one of them is to enable or disable the waiting room. Another thing that I found out that might interest some of you guys that are using the artificial backgrounds like Roger and Janine. You know how when you move quickly with that artificial background, how there's blurs and so forth? Well, on MacMost, they were showing that if you simply put up a green screen before you or any solid colored type of background, it will you'll still be able to use those things for Zoom for your background, but you won't get that blurry thing when you move around or people come in and out of the screen. I would presume that the only exception to that is if you had a piece of clothing that was the same color as your background material.
Well, if you look at mine, I just turned mine on right now, and you can see as I move my head.
Yes.
And I have a green screen. I just don't happen to have it in here at the moment.
Oh,
where do you find your green
screen
screen?
back there?
I just went out and bought I just went out and bought a piece of green cloth, and rigged up some makeshift background stands. I used to have all this crap. I gave it to my nephew years ago when I just wasn't using it so much. So the real drawback is when I was using the green background, I had it right behind this chair, was the green screen itself was cleaner. The problem was the lighting I had was more critical. And right now I've only got a single fluorescent light on, and I open up the blinds here on my sliding glass door to my left, and it's tolerable. But with the green screen, bits and pieces of my head would disappear just like it was doing right there because the lighting wasn't consistent enough. So that's the other thing you have to be aware of. You have to have decent lighting.
Pardon my ignorance, but where do you find your green screen at? Do you have
like
to
I
put
said,
that?
I just went and bought a piece of green cloth so that so I could roll it up or fold it or whatever. I bought green double knit, and that way it didn't have wrinkles.
Can you put something in your virtual background that's green color?
Well, the problem is what it's doing right now is without a true green screen, it's figuring out what's stationary and what's not stationary. I mean, what was it? Apple had that capability in their messaging unit way back when, where you had people on roller coasters and all that kind of stuff. And the way theirs worked is you got out of the picture, you let the camera look at the scene, and then you got back into the picture, and all it did was calculate the difference of what was static versus what was moving. This sort of works along the same lines. So if you give it a green or blue background, they call them green screens because that's the color that's the farthest away from the color of most flesh. And so as long as you're not wearing something real close to that same shade of green or that same shade of blue, you're okay. They can cancel out that particular color and put in whatever kind of a background they want. Right now, without a true green screen behind me and without the proper lighting, the software in the computer here is the software from Zoom is trying to figure out what's moving and what's not. That's why when I move my head back and forth with that virtual background, what little hair I still have left in the earphones here and everything just kind of disappears into the ether. I wouldn't have that problem with a true solid color background and good lighting. It just doesn't exist because they're doing that all the time. Almost all the scenes you see on TV with people driving in cars, all the footage through the windows and all that stuff is all green screened in.
Yeah, now, like Roger, the lighting that you have, from what I can tell, your lighting looks adequate. If you want a true green screen, they're not expensive. Go to either adorama.com or to B&H Photo.
Oh, I deal with B&H all the time.
Okay. Then just on their search engine, just say green screen, and they'll take you to all sorts of, they have the cloth, they have, like board type materials, paper green screen material, and everything else imaginable, and green screens at pretty good prices.
Thank you.
Let it not be unstated, though, that Zoom, the software that you're running, already has a green screen effect if you would like. In the video, down at the bottom of the toolbar of the video, it will say choose virtual background. And that will kick in a green screen for you. You don't have to purchase anything or do anything at all. You're just merely selecting a background, and the software will do a green screen.
Yes, right, but it doesn't work as well as a true green screen.
Understood.
Because it's using the extra computer power. You can see my left shoulder is disappearing here with the right there. There's a good example. It's more in my case, it's more due to crappy lighting in this room than it is for anything else.
Right. I appreciate that. Most people don't really get into that much need of it that they would want to set it up. So I was just wanting to go there and make sure everyone is aware you already do have that ability.
Robert, is that under preferences?
I would go down at the bottom of the screen. Typically, there's a start video.
Yeah, Roger, you see an option down there that's you see an option for the video camera?
Stop video.
Yeah, use the right arrow to the right of that, and you'll get an option to go into virtual backgrounds.
Oh, well, I do have a virtual background.
Yeah, you're okay, so you're good.
Yeah.
I'm not using a green screen. Like
your lighting is such, Lloyd, that it's not causing a problem. I mean, if you move back and forth left and right a little bit, we'll see bits and pieces of your ears or something disappear, but it pretty much comes back within a second or two.
If you don't move around a lot, you can get a compliment from your choice of a virtual screen. I often have a library up, and people really admire my library.
Well, when Janine left, it looked like she was ascending into heaven or something.
Yeah, she's been using that star background for a while.
Yeah, a galaxy.
You can take any photograph if you got it and put it in there.
Well, that's what mine is a vacation photograph.
There you go.
If you guys are interested, I just put up the link to the MacMost video on it's called the 10 most
ways to make your Mac's wallpaper.
Make your wallpaper unique from MacMost.
Yeah, that's Gary Rosenwig. In fact, we had Gary on a couple of years ago. I ought to see if I could get him maybe in a couple of months to maybe talk about the new operating system and some new features. So give him a couple of months to get used to it. But he's really good, and it's hard to find anybody who's willing to volunteer anything outside the club anymore. It's hard to find anybody who will volunteer for anything anyway.
I have an iPad question.
Love it. We'd love to hear it.
Go ahead, Diane.
The home button is partially not working. I can no longer
Not that
do
easy.
screenshot.
Grammarly can help. This sentence is grammatical.
I can't do a screenshot. Well, I figured I got a shortcut. I'm using the special enabled one, so I can do that. But I also tried to do a force quit the other day, and it wouldn't do a force quit.
This is on your iPhone or iPad?
iPad. So I don't know if it's software or partial hardware or what. I mean, I'm working around it, but
So which iPhone do you have?
it's an iPad. It's a
Oh, it's an iPad. Okay.
it's a sixth generation, and I'm running 13.6.
Well, that sounds, so you still, yeah, that the iPad would. That still has a real home button, not a virtual home button. It
Right.
sounds to me like that's crapping out is what it sounds like.
No, that's not good. Like I say, I found one to use, go into settings and use the special effects. So I've got a little virtual button or a digital button on so I can do screenshots. I click that and it comes up with a little menu, and then I can do a device,
Right.
I can do a screenshot. But wondering if that was hardware and a problem or what. I mean, it's working okay. Like if I can, click and go from, one app to another and double click, and that's still working, but it's just the screenshot and then the force quit is not working.
So the force quit you're using is the one that starts in the lower left-hand corner, drags up, you get all the apps, and then you just slide them up to the top?
No, I was wanting to do a force quit. No, that works fine. Slide it and force quit an app. But
Okay.
to do the force quit on the iPad where you're pushing the upper left, on off switch and the home screen at the same time.
Huh, I haven't tried that on mine.
Yeah, which was the way to force quit, and it didn't do it. I have a game that I play that once in a while it doesn't want to load, and I have to just do a complete restart. And I tried to do a force quit, and it wouldn't do it.
By the way, just in case anybody doesn't know, those are birds in Diane's background. But
Yes, sorry about it. That's why I'm trying to keep myself muted, because he will not shut up.
No, okay, he really has a whistle going there.
Well, he gets mad because my IMAX, my monitor screen is between me and his cage. So he can hear me, and he knows when I'm on a Zoom meeting, and he is a brat.
Cover him up.
I would think putting a cover over the cage would quiet him down.
Oh no, that does not work with him. he's a 20-year-old 2-year-old.
Okay.
It's a small parrot, and I was able to get him out on a stick next to me, and he was relatively quiet. But the last Zoom meeting I tried, after about 2 hours, he got mad and reached over and took a huge hunk out of my arm.
Oh, that was nice of him.
Ouch.
Oh, that's why I'm going with the mute and then just using the space bar to open it up again.
There you go. Well, we appreciate that.
Yeah, back to the problem. So you've identified it actually as using the home button in conjunction with another button on the pad.
That's correct.
Well, if the home button acts regular just fine any other time, except that it has a problem when interacting with another second button, that's not then the hardware problem I'm thinking that Greg first went to and my mind went to. But then as you described the problem, it was always a combination of home button and something else, which is more of a software problem.
Okay, yeah, it's the on off, and I'm not sure if I don't think I've updated to the latest. I think there is a 6.1. I haven't double checked.
Right. Well, and unfortunately, it is not typical that people would try to do that kind of thing to force quit. Typically, if you're wanting to hang, you just press and hold, I think, the power button in the home or whatever to shut it down.
Okay, babe, good.
Instead of force quitting the app. I mean, I'm not actually familiar with the action that you're speaking of, which speaks to how unused or uncommon it might be to many people. So it might just be a hanging on problem that's been around for a while type of thing. But yeah, your best bet probably is just going to be to wait for a bug fix, because it does sound like a software issue, if I will.
Don't do that.
Okay, well, it was the screenshot was the first I noticed, because I use that quite a bit to screenshot something.
Right.
And all of a sudden, it just quit working.
Right. And well, screenshot, then, you know, you're correct. Screenshots are not a rare dog. And but it doesn't sound like a home button problem, which is what Greg and I were first going with. So it could be, you might, if you know, Greg's the type, reload the operating system. You could attempt to back it up and then reinstall the software and then restore the backup if you're really anxious to, if it really bugs you that much.
Oh, it doesn't bug me. Like I say, I found the workaround, so I've got a button that I can still do screenshots. So
there you go.
But I was just wondering, because this iPad, actually, when I first got it, I should have taken it in. It has a couple of spots on the touch screen that are not as sensitive as other parts. So I don't know if that was, you know.
Right.
I just didn't follow through. I didn't follow through the life situations and getting over to, oh shoot, I'm forgetting the name. It's an Apple dealer in Pasadena that has a real good service department that I've used for years.
Wonderful.
And
You know, I don't know if anyone has noticed, but the Apple stores are back open again. They do
Only by appointment, aren't they?
by appointment. Yes, you make an appointment. For a Genius, if you want to do sales and that sort of thing. But many people do want to actually look and feel and touch. So they just opened up, I think, last Monday.
Good.
yeah, the Apple store in Glendale is in the big Galleria, which is a pain in the butt to get to. And this other place in Pasadena that I'm losing the name is a standalone store with, you know, their own parking lot, and you just walk straight in. And like I say, I've dealt with them over the years, long before they had an Apple store anywhere around. And it's been a real good place to have stuff done. And I had talked with them about it, and they thought maybe a reinstall or whatever, but I just didn't follow through. And it seemed to, as far as the touch screen, it seemed to kind of right itself to where it wasn't as bad as it was. So I just let it go.
You know, I'm kind of curious here. I deal with one of my websites. It is a site that users go to and want to benefit from the information about Zoom meetings. And so we have a link for a Zoom meeting. You'd click on a link and it would take you to that Zoom meeting with the password and all already done. The point is that there is no mention of the word Zoom on our website. So it isn't something that the average casual person would use and then some malware would use and then go and Zoom bomb. So my question is to the group, have others had any situation where you have been in a Zoom meeting and been Zoom bombed, as they say, with something of extremely unpleasant nature?
So far, I haven't. I've had a couple of Zoom meetings with doctors, which is interesting.
Well, those are quite private. I'm speaking more of those that might be inadvertently overly shared, if you will, because my point is that there is everybody has different levels of concern, of privacy, of security, of negative interactions, etc., with the public and such. And we had a significant number of people that were very concerned of publicizing or sharing Zoom links. They wanted everybody to get the link via email, et cetera, et cetera. And in general, I just hadn't seen it as a issue. And that was where my mind was going earlier with the putting people into a rating room, etc. But I'm just wondering in general, I find Zoom to be an interesting option, and wondering if others had any other tidbits or thoughts or experiences such that they might want to share, since that's part of the world that we're living in and will be living in for a while.
Yeah, my friend that lives in Corona, he's very involved with his church, and the church does Zoom meetings, and they do a new link every time they have a meeting, and they do a password. He sends them out in 2 separate emails, and that seems to be the only way they've been able to cut down on. I don't know whether it's other religious organizations that are bugging them or what, but that seems to be how they've been controlling their situation. That's a drag to have to do that, though.
Did he speak of the fact that they had problems prior?
Yes. Yeah, they didn't have any off-color stuff, but they had inappropriate advertisements and things like that that were being sent.
Okay, so a true widely shared Zoom link. I mean, excuse me. In addressing the security issue, my thoughts were that if you did a Google search for the word Zoom link, you could probably come up with many different live or useful links. And if you want to be a bad boy, you could probably find these easily. And with the church, they're putting it out to others that unfortunately may or may not agree with the church position, etc., or just want to be a butt. So I can see where that, because I am familiar with many people that use the same Zoom URL week after week, same password, etc., and have not had a problem. So I guess it's the industry or the method for marketing.
I do a Zoom meeting for our church every Wednesday and every Sunday. The only security thing we do is we issue a new link every week or every meeting. We don't do anything else. No, we've been doing this since we've been shut down for quite a few months. We've had no problems.
Right.
Also, Greg, I've sent you a couple of emails. Zoom has announced that starting September 27th, all Zoom meetings will be required to have either a passcode or have the waiting room enabled to ensure a safer, more secure meeting. With the password, you're going to have to, if you want to just do the password and embed it in the link, you can do that in the settings in the web page of Zoom. But it looks like we're going to have to take some specific action before September 27th. And I sent you those 2 emails with those links in it to the websites that explain this.
Thanks, Lloyd. I appreciate that. Like I said, I checked to see if I had the latest version of Zoom. I didn't this morning. And security was the enable waiting room was turned on by default in this version. But once I started this version up and I saw, oh, that's new. I went down and looked at it, and it allowed me to disable it. So I don't know whether this is a forerunner to what you're talking about, or if there'll be another version that comes out in between. But as long as we don't seem to have an issue, I'll just manually turn it off every time, because it just saves me the effort of having to release it, or remember to do a passcode or whatever. We do use, at the moment, we've been using the same passcode since we started with Zoom 3 years ago. And but just to play it safe, I've just been resending that. Once I get this up and running, I copy the link from inside here to make sure that it's working, and send it out to everybody just in case. But it is the same from 1 month to the next at the moment.
I'd like a clarification on the comment, though. Are you saying that they're just requiring a password, or that are they requiring you to change your password for each meeting?
Lloyd, do you know?
He's frozen in time.
You know, his picture, his sound was getting a little weird there. I don't know. I haven't seen that email, and I have to go back and look through. I probably just skipped over it or whatever.
Greg, well, you might know.
I've sent you.
There we go.
Sent you 2 emails with that information in it, Greg.
Did you hear the question that Robert just asked? Ask again, Robert.
Lloyd,
Ask it again, Robert.
is the change that they're going to require a different password for each meeting, or Greg might also know, or were Zoom links allowed without any password at all previously?
I think from what I've read here, you either have to have a password and you can embed that in your link, or you have to have a waiting room enabled.
Okay.
So if you enable the password in the link, it should really be no different.
Right, I understand. Greg, were you able to create a Zoom link without a meeting without any password at all?
Yes.
Ah, there we go. Okay, so they're requiring passwords.
At least
for
so
all.
far right now, at least as of right now.
I appreciate that. So they're requiring a password for all, but I'm imagining they're not going to cause it to have to be different for each meeting.
I wouldn't think so.
There's a whole lot of people that are not real techno savvy, and they really do appreciate being able to click on a single link and just having it work week after week. I mean, you have a lot of kids here. My first grade grandson is going to school and using a Zoom link. So, you know, it would be unfair to have to teach. I mean, my kids could have done it in the first grade, but most kids can't do it. Are not going to be that on top of it all. Many adults, they would want the ease of use of the same link each and every time. So, okay, interesting. Anybody else have any other interesting Zoom items? I'm just kind of curious, other things that have been happening out there that I may not have heard about yet.
Well, I can tell you one thing in terms of Zoom use. As most of you probably know, my daughter's a college professor back east, and they've resumed classes online. And the school has what's supposed to be a sophisticated system for video classes with the students. However, the system has some bugs in it, and it won't produce allow her to do the kind of charts and graphs and so forth that she has to present with her lectures. So she had to pay out of her own pocket for a month's Zoom subscription so that she can do her class until presumably the university will have things straightened out within the month, but she said she's not holding her breath. In the meantime, it's she's paying the monthly price, but it's quite high.
Their basic tier, unless it's changed, is still $15 a month or $150 for a year, and you save $30 if you do it that way.
It was costing her more than $15, and
What they're doing is they're charging based on the number of people supposedly, and that isn't right. Not to do it that way. So she's not paying Zoom; she's paying the school, right?
no, she's paying Zoom. The school, since the school's position is since they have a system that you know, for doing the classes online, that they won't reimburse her for using Zoom for the lectures. So she's having to pay for it herself, and so we'll just have to see what happens. It was quite expensive. Zoom, normally it's an annual subscription, but
You can do it month to month or whenever you want to. You could just do it.
The month to month is quite expensive. It's comes out to substantially more than $150 a year.
Wow.
So that's the story there. But apparently she's able to do everything that she needs to do with it. The main thing was that she needed to, I forgot what the function's called, but she needed to be able to break off her students into side rooms like things so that she could have group projects going on.
Oh, okay.
And then have the ability to listen in, selectively listen in to each of the projects individually while they were doing that. And Zoom can do it, but her university system wasn't equipped for that yet.
You know, you are speaking in the avenues that I was kind of curious about, because I do know that teachers can have students break out into virtual rooms or groups and interact amongst themselves, and yes, have the teacher visit each of the different study groups, if you will. Some fascinating features that I've heard about, but haven't interacted with people that were actually making use of them. So I don't know, that must be a higher end use of Zoom than I'm familiar with. But,
Yeah, different button,
this,
different package.
This link that I put up, and I'll put it up a second time on there so you can find it easier. On the chat window here, goes to a video with the 20 things about Zoom that you probably didn't know about. And I guarantee that even someone like you, Robert, with your extensive knowledge, you're going to find out some functions that Zoom has that you didn't know about even. And I suggest that everybody take a look at this video, because you're all going to learn something about it that's going to be useful to you.
Yes, and hit your mute before you go and click on that link. But yeah, that you know, again, for a while we're going to be more and more making use of Zoom, and so I find it to be an interesting path of learning for many. Some of you know that I've been involved in the square dance world in the past decade and such, and one of the interesting uses of Zoom is that normally in a square dance, you have 8 people and in 4 couples that are forming a square. And people that are not wanting to lose their skill level and want to practice, they're having virtual dances. So you can be one person in the group, and the caller, if you will, is you're making the moves, and everybody in their own house, because they don't want to cluster, they're dancing individually as if there's other people in your quote square.
Wow.
So, I mean, yeah, absolutely. There are classes to learn how to dance, ballroom dance sort of thing, virtually. And you know, you and your partner are just sitting there and you're watching your screen, and they're teaching you how to dance. You clear your living room out, and you, so it's, I'm very intrigued by the unique, creative ways that people are making use of Zoom. It's a computer technology that is only growing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That link is now posted on the chat window.
Right. Thank you. All right. Any other people came with problems today? Issues, questions?
Yes, I have a question. My monitor has a built-in camera on it, but I really don't have any control over the camera. Is there any way that I can, by default, have the camera zoom in, say like, I don't know, 15%? Are there any external controls or software controls for the...
You can get a piece of software. I use it's called eyeglasses. It's like $14, I think, something like that. And oh, come on. And of course, now it's not working, but I'm zoomed up about 30%, something like that. And it lets you change the color, different backgrounds, give you different kinds of weird effects, whatever you want. And it'll do exactly what you're talking about. So you don't have to have your face shoved right into the screen.
Great. I think $14 is well worth it. Good
I think
investment.
so.
Yeah.
And like I said, it a lot, for some reason, it's not letting me bring it up right now. Let me see if it's just.
While you're playing with that, Greg, maybe
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to throw out to others. I was sitting in an airport, and I just haven't taken the opportunity to do any research on this one. I was sitting in an airport, working on my computer, and the green light on my MacBook Pro up by the camera came on. Normally, that means that you are entering or getting on a FaceTime video or something of that sort. I hadn't instigated anything. I hadn't done anything on my own end to instigate that. My mind isn't going to go in the direction of some malware software on my computer. But anybody have that green light kick in and the camera turn on, so to speak, when they didn't think they meant to have that go on?
No.
Okay, fascinating.
Sounds like someone hacked you.
I know. Thank you, Bart. I appreciate that.
Okay, I'm sorry, Robert. Go ahead, finish.
No. I happen to have something in my hand that was a paperclip of sorts, and I just put my credit card in a paperclip over that and went on about my business. And 20 minutes later, when I took it off, the green light was gone. I just found it a very, since I'm not one that believe that there's people watching me, I just found it interesting and was wondering if others had seen it. Go, Greg.
Okay, Bob. So here is eyeglasses. Can you see it changing the zoom effect there?
Nice. Yeah.
And then it has some presets for like you want a sepia look, all the kind of crap you'll never use, And it has some of those. You can adjust the individual lighting. You can have bizarre looking effects. Like this is always a really good one. Like I haven't been feeling really well today. There's several hundred of those that you can play with. That kind of deal. And
let's say that you want to magnify, you say 30%. Can you have it default to that 30% next time?
It'll remember every time.
Okay.
So like it remembers, you tell eyeglasses which applications you want it to use. So when you use FaceTime, do you want eyeglasses on or off? When you use Zoom, do you want it on or off? It only comes up for those kind of applications that use the built-in camera, or if you've got a third-party camera, it'll do that as well. And when you go over here to the zoom and flip, you can do things like, I'm living in a fun house here, it's kind of a deal, And for your own screen, you can have it. This is the way it actually, it looks the same to you, but I can flip the image if I want to. So I can see what everybody else is seeing, or I can see it as a mirror effect for me, which is kind of interesting. So it's got a lot of features built into it. And like I said, if you've got multiple cameras, it allows you to pick whichever camera you want to go and pick up.
I checked it. It's about $20, I think, on the internet.
Yeah, I used it enough that I think it's worthwhile. So.
Okay, thank you.
Have you found any sort of supplemental lens that could go over the camera on an iMac to give you a wide angle?
I'm sure somebody makes something like that. If they make them for iPhones, I'll bet they make them for an iMac as well. It would have to be something that, because the bezel thickness varies some, I would think it would have to be something that would be a sticky surface kind of a deal, with that kind of plastic that wants to stick to glass kind of a deal. I'm sure somebody makes something like that. I do a Google search on supplemental lenses for iMac computers, something along for iMac camera or whatever. I would try something like that, Bart.
Yeah, because I'm in physical therapy, and I have Zoom. Well, it's not Zoom. Kaiser has their own system, but I'm having video sessions with the physical therapist, and the room is small, and the way the furniture is and so forth, he can only see part of my body to confirm whether I'm doing my exercises correctly, because things are limited by the focal length of the camera in the iMac.
Does anybody have any software or demos or anything of that sort that they might want to put forth for some future meeting that we might talk about?
Well, maybe. I don't know if this pertains to many people, but I use a word processor called Nisys Writer Pro. And they save all their files as a text file on my hard drive. But I can't tell their text file from an ordinary text file, so I had been putting images in their information panel, a special image in their picture. Well, when I do that, the Apple or the Macintosh doesn't recognize it most of the time. It says it's unavailable because it's not recognized software. So when I take the picture out of that information panel, it works properly. I can save it again where I couldn't save it before. But this is Nisys Writer Pro. It's a word processor. And that picture seems to screw it up. Anyway, I don't know if that pertains to many people.
Well, no, this is a general question is what this is, if I may.
Yeah.
So you're saying when you click on the app, if you do a Command I, in that area is where you're altering?
Well, I open the information panel and there's a little square in the upper left-hand corner where you can put an image. And that image, when you save it, that image identifies your special text program, your text edit program from all the ordinary ones. Because when I open that special text edit program, I have to open it with Nisys Writer Pro to get all the special effects that it provides.
Okay, so what I hear is if you click on an application and you do a Command I, it brings open a window that speaks directly to that application that you have done the Command I on. It's an info window, and in the upper left there's a icon there, and you're changing the icon for that. Okay, okay. Now is what you're trying to do is to click on a Nisys document and have it open in Nisys?
Well, I'm trying to identify a Nisys because it doesn't save it in its own file. It saves it in a text edit file. And you can't tell one file from an ordinary text edit file.
Okay, so
by making it have a different image. That's where
I appreciate where you're going, but do you in the Finder? There's a preference under Finder preferences. There's a advanced tab at the top, and one of those checkbox. The first checkbox is show all file name extensions. If you take Nisys and if you take a document, a document that you've created with Nisys, what is the extension of that document?
It's the same extension as text. TXT is that? Yeah, it's the same thing. It doesn't
okay,
say
Rob, the only other thing I could think, I know exactly what he's talking about. The only other thing I could think of would be to take one of the files that was definitely created in Nisys that he wants to default open to Nisys, do a get info on it, and then go down and go on the get info. Where do you set it for the open them all this way or change the permission or what?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And the more info.
Yeah.
Well, of course, that would just cause all text files to be open with Nisys, which
by default might be okay for his purpose.
Understood. Does Nisys offer you to? I mean, Nisys is a very powerful, long time existing program.
Right.
Does it allow you to modify the extension that it saves with?
I haven't really tried that, but what I have done is given up on the image idea.
Yes.
And in the title line underneath, I put a special, what do you call it? Those things that Apple gives you,
The special characters?
yeah, an emoji. I put an
Oh,
emoji in
emoji,
that.
emoji.
Emoji in the title line. That's how I do it now, and that's no problem.
So you're doing it visually. So you have a visual reference based on the way that the text is in the title.
Yeah, I haven't done what Robert just suggested. I don't know how. I haven't tried that.
I'm going to share my screen real quick.
Which Nisus software are you using?
Let's see if I have its name somewhere. Nisus. Well, I have. Let me open it. It's on my dock. Where is it?
Okay, real quick. Yeah, can you see my desktop?
Yeah, the trailer.
Okay, yeah. All right, so I'm going to do a get info on that. This happens to be a PDF file, and I'm going to do a get info on a file that can be opened by multiple applications.
Yeah.
And as you look down through this extended, I've got these all popped open. But as you look down there, you can see there's an option here where it says open with.
Right.
And so if I pop that option open on this particular file, I theoretically could open this file up in Affinity Designer because it's just importing the text content of it.
Yeah.
Affinity Photo, Affinity Publisher, Books, Color Sync Utility, Decompress. These are all the ones. This happened to be a preview file, but if I wanted this to open up, let's say with Open PDF McMaster as an example, right now from this point on, when I would double click that file, it would open up with PDF McMaster. However, since I've got one already selected that way, I can also come over here and say change all, and that would change every PDF that I've got. If I double click it, would open up in PDF McMaster. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
This way, I think for what you're talking about, Roger, I think your only option is to do exactly what you're doing. In the good old days, there used to be, before they started using the little colored dots for labels, remember there was a time when you could actually change the color of the folder or change the color of the icon. You can, but you got to get a third-party utility to do it. And probably every time you would load a new operating system, it's probably going to blow that away. You have to go back and do it again.
Well,
so it sounds to me like you've got the best method going right now, Roger. Is to
I try
some kind of a weird, is to use some kind of a weird character in there.
Yeah, a smiley face or something.
Well, you could make it even simpler. You could do something like an option command, an option 8, which gives you like a dot or whatever. You could. I rather than having to manually use something where you got to pick it off of a keyboard list, I would try an option something. Option something so that you get something that is normal text, can be part of your normal typing routine, but it's easier than having to go get an emoji or an icon, a mini icon, and cram in there. Something that you can do with the keyboard.
Well, I opened the program and it's called Nisus Writer Pro. That's what I'm using.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, that's a $65 program.
Yeah, and aren't there any? I don't have Nisus Writer, but aren't there any options in their preferences of saving the file type, and maybe they have an actual Nisus Writer file type?
I would bet that would have that. They've been around a long time, very powerful program, and I bet in their preferences in the save section that you'll find the options you're looking for.
I'll experiment. I'll look for that.
Yeah, to me that would make sense that they would have that capability in there somewhere.
Absolutely, yes. You're as a text editor, it's a very powerful program used by a lot of people that just do a heavy amount of text creation. Some people use that for writing websites. For coding.
because TXT is so generic. But PDF's a good example. The Mac knows if the PDF was created inside of Preview or with Preview or done a save as a PDF, which would use it for Preview, then Preview will be the one that by default opens up, even though it's got a PDF extension hidden on it, as opposed to opening it up in Acrobat and saving it in Acrobat, which also has a PDF extension. If you don't have the extensions turned on, has a PDF extension. But there's another characteristic inside that file that says open me up by default with Acrobat, or open me up by default with Microsoft Word, or open me up by default with not just the extension. They don't rely on just the extensions. That's just for our convenience.
Nesys is powerful such that I'm going to bet $1 that the default is .txt and you have choices for other options.
I would think so. I would think they would have their own. I would think they would have their own for convenience.
I'll work on that.
Took care of that one. There we go. That whole demo happened real quick there.
Can I ask a dumb question? I've never heard of what is it called, Nesys before?
Yeah, it's been around for 20, 30 years, something like that.
What does it do that makes it worth that kind of money? What is its purpose, and what does it do to fulfill that?
It's an alternative choice to Microsoft Word.
And in fact, it goes beyond that. I mean, many people are, remember the options of like Text Wrangler and all of that kind of
Still
stuff?
around. Barebones still makes Text Wrangler.
100% agree. And the questions are, when you're working in a text world, sometimes you need to be able to have the return key be a carriage return. Sometimes you want it just a line feed.
Right.
Sometimes you want to have different kinds of options. You might be putting it into a language mode. And if it understands, let's say Python as a programming language, and you're typing, it will say, oh, I know what you want to type, and it'll have an autocomplete. You'll type PRI, and it'll say, oh, do you mean print? And you just hit the space bar, and it puts print, and then allows you to continue on. So these text editors are designed for programmers, for web designers, and others that don't want to work so hard. They have built into them many different types of, you're familiar with these simple, they'll show display lines, numbers or not line numbers, many different kinds of things that are needed by people that work heavy, typically coders or web designers in the text world.
Yeah, like I happen to use Barebones BB Edit. I like that and I don't do it so much anymore, but when I used to write scripts, it had the nice convenience that it automatically formatted the damn thing, which I really like. So you could have it format X number of characters over when you did a tab or whatever. And it also, whenever you use any kind of, I'm not operators, not operands, but whenever you use, let's say, a left parenthesis, where you had to use a right parenthesis to close off it actually checked to see if you used a left set of quotes, then finally you had to use a right set of quotes. If you used a left apostrophe as a single quote, then you had to use a right apostrophe. It actually checked that as you were typing your text, and so in case you forgot something, it came back and told you. I really like that feature of that. Plus, it can use it as a regular text editor as well.
Right. Mismatched pairs is what it's
that was it.
for.
Trying to think of the damn word.
Right.
Brain fart.
And then when you're programming, you have functions, you have commands, you have variables.
Right. Plus, it displayed your various functions in different colors, which was really easy to see.
Exactly. It'll show you what you've typed is a function name, and such that you'll go, oh, I guess I can't use that as a variable kind of thing. So it allows, when you're coding, for you to see that you have to easily identify and find information within this gobbledygook of letters on a page. So when you do a lot of typing like a programmer, there you go. It pays for itself.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Another request for a demo. Not that I'm looking to study any new program. I'm just always kind of curious what direction people are going.
Real quick, you were asking about a wide-angle lens for your iMac, Bart. I typed in wide-angle lens for iMac, and there's actually a wide-angle lens for iMac in the Apple community. where they talk about some options that you have out there.
Great. Okay, I'm going to take a look at that after the meeting.
Well, we know watches are coming up. I guess we're going to have to hope for iPhones. Or at least some people. I know a couple of people that have broken the back glass of their phones, and the case is the only thing holding it together, or some such. I've never known breaking the back glass to be a reality, but yeah, I guess it is.
I've got a question about changing the icon. You touched on it earlier about that word processor, and that is a lot of my icons that I grab the URL and drag it to the desktop, and it always shows as Safari. How can I get that to change to a Chrome icon?
Use Greg's tip. Click on any one of them.
Got it?
Command I.
Yes.
Open with. Select the application.
Okay, when I do the open with, Safari shows as default. I have a little up down arrow, but it's all including the text is grayed out.
So by default, it should be what? Just a regular HTML file, right?
Correct.
The link, Robert?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
so, but I wouldn't think it would be grayed out. I would think you should be able to still change it. So wherever you double click it, it should be able to go open by default, then open in Chrome rather than open in Safari.
It does open with Chrome. It's just that I'm annoyed by the icon. I want to change the icon.
Well, you can always open up Chrome, save a file off in Chrome so you get their icon on it. Do Command I, select that icon in the info window, and then manually go over to one that's got the Safari icon. Do a Command I on it. Select that one and do a Command V, and you're pasting that image on top of that image. Does that make sense? What I just said?
Yes, and once that's done, I should be able to change everything. I'm happy changing.
No, it won't do that. It won't. It won't change the artwork for you.
Okay. I'm not happy with that answer. We're merely changing the icon instead of what I think he's really wanting, which is to change the application that controls that icon.
No, he says that they're open. So if it's got a Safari icon, but when you double click it, it opens up in Chrome, correct?
That's
Is
right.
that what you're saying, Bob?
Okay.
So see, the change all only affects what application opens it based on internal information. It won't change the icon.
Oh.
You've got to manually go back and change the icon. Now there's probably a third or fourth. There's probably a third-party application. I'd be willing to bet there is a third-party application where you could do some kind of a find to find them all and change them all. There's probably a way of doing that. But that would only be that one session. You'd have to then go back and do each one from that point on again.
How does the system know what the icon looks like? Somewhere it's set up as a default to show the Safari icon.
No, that's a screw up of some sort. No, I'm serious. It really is. The only other thing I could think is so what do you have as a default browser? Which, if you just double click on a link, what does the default open up in?
My default is Chrome. It
is Chrome.
I checked that earlier. Yes.
Let's do this. Click Find a File in an area of your Mac that you have control over, that you own that URL. Typically, have it on your desktop or somewhere like that. I'm wanting it not to be in the system, if you will. But find an HTML file.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and share your screen, Bob?
I'm not sure how to do that.
Click down there at the bottom where it says share screen. And then you'll get a panel that'll pop up, and there you go. That's good.
Okay. All right.
Now we can see what you're doing.
On your desktop, is any of those HTML files?
Yeah,
I think so. I think I see one there, on the right-hand column, about halfway down.
I need to bring this to a small
Okay.
images on the left, on the right side. And I see images of people. Let me move that. There we go. Okay. So yeah, sure, fine.
Okay, like here's a good example. Ingredient, weight,
There you go.
chart,
Got it. Okay.
baking.
Right. Okay. You got one
That's one
selected.
that's got a Safari icon on it, but you say if you
Okay.
double click that, that'll open up in Chrome.
Yes, it will.
So click on it once and then do a Command I. Up, 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 up.
Not a shortcut. Okay.
Click on
Get
it once.
info. You were there. Get info on it. Command I.
And stretch that out. Now, do you see that it says open with? It says Safari.
Yes.
Click on that. Now that's grade right there.
Yes.
Click on it though. Can you?
No control. Nothing there.
Greg, I see that is a dimmed window in many
Yeah,
areas.
I see it. Yeah.
Something else is going on here. Where is that there's something else going on, because that document is designed to be open with Safari, and we should able to change that. Where is that?
Click open sharing and permissions. Click open the open sharing and permissions.
See who owns it?
The very bottom.
Oh, okay.
Throw.
Unlock that.
No, it's got. Yeah, unlock it. There you go. That might have some bearing on it. Type in your password, your system password. Okay, now go back up to open with. No, it's still grayed out.
Go to system preferences. Yeah, and go to users.
Users.
Users and groups or something. Yeah, there it is.
Where?
The second row.
Second row.
People,
Users.
side by side.
Got it.
And unclick the no, you are an admin. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going down that you were a
Go
user.
ahead and unlock so we can see the whole thing.
Sure.
I was imagining he might not have been an admin.
Yeah, right. I was thinking the same thing.
And where is that document located?
It was on his desktop. So
I see that. I was kind of thinking, it says hide extension. There's something going on here. I was imagining it isn't an alias, so it's not looking. So open your browser. Use your Chrome browser. Move it to
do
the
a right
phone.
mouse click open with just in case.
Drag that link onto the desktop. The lock in front of the Google.com. Click on the lock in the address bar.
Oh,
it says Google.com.
Are you referring to groups, users and groups? Or?
No. In the Chrome window, in the address bar of the Chrome window, there's a lock
URL
immediately
window.
to the left of.
Okay.
Drag that to the desktop.
Okay. Now that's alphabetical. You'll see that as changing the icon right there.
Changing the icon. Okay.
That's what I was looking at.
Well, and as we saw, the system thinks that Safari is your default. And okay, let's look at it from that angle. Do you want Chrome or Safari to be your default?
Chrome.
Okay, let's go down that route. Go back to Chrome.
Yeah.
And go to the hamburger menu, the far right, 3 dots on the in the toolbar, the 3 dots, one above each other. Click on that and go down to settings. And I'm small window here. I'm looking for setting it to be your default browsers. Slide up some. Okay, default browser. Google Chrome was your default browser.
Yes.
Okay.
Already there.
Come on, Greg, help me out here.
I'm looking at it.
There's something going on though, because the dimmed aspect of the get info it's telling us that you don't have permission for some
This is
reason.
going to sound stupid, Robert, but would a disk repair fix this? Maybe.
Possibly, absolutely.
I'm wondering if that hasn't been done for a while, and then he made a change. It's still just carrying on the old characteristics. I think in the old days you could do a desktop rebuild, and that would pretty much solve that problem.
Yeah, no, that's a fine place to go next is repair permissions. Do you have can you get to your disk repair, your disk utility app?
Yeah. Right there. Okay. There you go.
And click on first aid. Now this is interesting. You have you're selected at the moment Macintosh Art HD, which I guess is, yeah, okay, go ahead and do the run. And yeah.
More than likely, the other one is my backup.
Correct. Well, maybe. This looks like the Fusion drive. That's what it looks like.
No, it's a solid state drive. I can see it up there in the name.
Solid state.
Okay.
That's the way they break them up now with containers and
Right.
the data, and the HD, and then the data itself.
Right. Okay, go ahead and click done. Close that up.
I would go ahead and do the HD data while
Sure.
you're already here. Go ahead and do a first aid on that as well.
Now, is that local to my CPU box, or is that the external NAS drive?
No. The stuff up in the top is all the internal junk.
Okay.
This may take a little longer.
Yeah, your regular hard drive on 1015, you can't really do any changes to it. All your data is where all the stuff is at.
Right.
On 1015, that's what needs to be repaired.
Yeah, the only way you can really get to the HD itself is to really do anything is to do it with a reboot it into the reinstall Mac mode kind of thing and use disk utility there, because then it comes up on mini Unix.
Okay, all right. Go ahead and say done on that. Quit out from that. We've done all that we can in that area. Greg, do you think we're going to restart to get a full effect?
I don't think you would have to be honest with you, Robert.
Okay, all right. I was just wanting to imagine.
Yeah, do a command I on that, Bob.
Okay. Done.
Yeah, it's still
Open
looking.
window still grayed out.
And it's still looking at Safari as well.
Yeah.
Well, not that really is the point. You know, with this being dimmed, before trying to fix we need to fix this before we can fix the Safari/Google, because Chrome says that it knows that it is the default, and obviously your system knows it, but this dialog, you need to be able to get access to that kind of stuff. And the only time that typically is going to be locked out is if that document is in a protected area, but we created a new one. And,
Which the desktop looked like it was open. Yeah, that should be no problem.
Correct.
As I recall, isn't there some setting in system preferences where you define, say like mail, okay, I use Yahoo, or I use a different program? Isn't there like system-wide selections for what your default programs are?
There are many applications that you set the default of. All of that is a separate issue from the fact that in this window, we want to see your ability to change the open with. Let's open your home folder, your documents folder, if you would, if you don't mind.
Right
okay, okay, and now drag another link into that window. Just wanting to see if it acts the same as the desktop. I mean, it certainly might. Well, I mean a new one, actually. Well, that would be fine. Okay, click once on that now, and then Command I. Do a Command I.
Okay.
That's still locked out.
what I would suggest trying, and if you haven't yet, launch Safari and select that as your default and see if that.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. And then come back, see if you can come if it changes or not.
You know, I hear that, but regardless of what is your default, this dialogue should be allowing you to do that kind of thing. But let's give it a shot. Absolutely.
Well, there could be something. Yeah, there could be some problem with.
Whoa, look what we saw there. We have a Norton user.
Yes.
Well, there you go.
Whatever that means.
Greg, go ahead.
Wait a minute. I just tried this, Robert.
Yeah.
I have Safari. I dragged a URL to the desktop, and it comes up with the open with says Safari default, the version of Safari, and it's grayed out.
Son of a gun. Well, I'm going to assume you don't have a Norton product.
Would you recommend I deactivate Norton for this
No,
tab?
no. Greg is doing some alternate testing, and I'm so shocked that at the moment I'm gonna go do it myself because
Nope, you can't grab the use this application, open all documents. There's no it's grayed out no matter what. Now that explains the grayed out part that we have no control over. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to try. I'll start up a Chrome browser and see if that's doing the same thing.
Drag this. I should be able to grab this and drag it to the desktop, right?
well, Greg has done another path of debugging here, and I appreciate that because we're coming up with a expected unexpected. It's a known unknown.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Okay.
It has to be a recent operating system bug in my mind.
Oh.
Because, well, in other words, what we've gotten to is it's not a bug on your computer. It's another path that we have to travel down.
Okay.
Greg, you doing a Google?
Yeah, and I went over to, I don't have a Chrome browser on here, but I had Firefox. It's exactly the same. Same
Right,
thing.
exactly. That's what I was assuming.
It's it's limited to the operating system for whatever reason.
Correct, but
This is Apple's way of keeping control.
well, no, because they're allowing you to have a alternate browser, but it's incorrectly displayed get info window.
Yes.
I agree.
Because
Well,
it is incorrect and it doesn't allow you to correct it. But it's operating correctly. Oh, it's also actually having the wrong icon as well. And that was what took us down this path.
Yep.
But well, before the end of the meeting, Greg will come up with the workaround. But it looks like
I could be the sales rep workaround. Yeah, your computer's out of date. You need to buy a new computer.
well, Bob, I love this.
That's a good one, Bob. I've never heard of this one before.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Okay. It's an operating system issue. It's not you. Don't take it personally.
I didn't look to see what operating system. Bob, are you ready, Catalina?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. Well, so am I.
Yeah.
I do all the updates. We're up.
Correct. We're looking at simply looking at an operating system bug.
Now, in my case, Robert, when I dragged the URL window to build a HTML icon on the screen, it's a generic looking icon. It's not even Didn't even have a Safari logo attached to it or a Firefox logo attached. It's generic. It's the Get Info says open with Safari.
And you were dragging a Firefox.
Both Firefox and Safari created a blank
Wow.
document, an empty document, icon-wise.
I got a Safari icon at least. We're less broken than you. Well, I know this has worked properly before. It has to be a current bug because it's not.
Excuse me, they don't use the word bug, it's an enhancement.
It's an undocumented feature, yeah.
Yeah, undocumented feature, that's right.
Right, okay. Well, Bob, thank you for sharing your screen and stuff, but we don't have an answer. A little bit of Google, we might be able to determine a workaround, but it isn't working the way it's expected. Hey, Janine, you're back, huh?
Yeah, there's no ash falling right now, so I'm feeling a bit more secure, but I'm packed and ready to go if I have to.
Well, now, once you're at stage 3, which means get your butt out of there, what are you waiting for? The knock on the door?
No, I've been doing some research, on the web and talking to people who have talked to the actual firefighters, and they're saying that it's expected that we're going to go to a level 2 this afternoon. So I will wait until this afternoon to see, and I have a place to go. It's all set. I'll just have to get my dog in the car and then be off. But I'm packed and ready to go. So if there's any sign of ash or a red glow in the sky, I'm out of here.
My question though, since you're already at stage 3, which means leave.
Yes.
What are you waiting for? What other action would it be if you were just sitting in your bed with the blinds dropped? What other action are you waiting for to tell you that it's time? Just physical awareness?
Well, I did leave. I was gone for 3 days.
But just not back.
And then they said that it was going to go to a level 2 in the afternoon, and it'd be okay to come back.
I appreciate
it. I came back, and it still has not dropped to a level 2. So I am waiting, and
She wants to be the first one home.
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
No.
I say you want to be the first one back.
Is there a level 4?
No.
That's when the house is gone, Robert.
So you're waiting for a knock on the door to say, get your butt out of here.
There will be a notice, yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right. I was just curious how that all worked, but okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Janine, where are you located and which fire is the threatening fire?
It's the South Oban Chain fire. It's the evacuation zone right now is Shady Cove over to Trail, including Trail, and then east of that. Right now we have no wind, and the temperature is in the low 60s. So that's a good thing. We have the tankers dropping the red chemicals as well as the water tankers, and we have all sorts of security around. There is one of the local police cars is sitting at the end of our driveway there, probably to prevent looters. There are a number of families that have already come back. You have to show identification that you do indeed belong here. So what we don't know is if they're continuing to allow people to come back to their homes or not. But I am being very cautious, and I will leave at the first sign of any trouble. I'm all packed, ready to go.
Gotcha.
Again.
Yep, understood.
Greg, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I've only used Safari as a browser. Any reason to use Chrome?
I personally like Safari. I stopped using Chrome probably because I had extensions that didn't work in Chrome that did work in Safari. That's probably why. No, I see no reason why you shouldn't be able to use Chrome. There doesn't seem to be I don't think Google's tracking us any more special than anybody else.
I was just wondering because doing a meeting with my doctor from down at USC, their system will not support Safari.
Yeah,
I
that's
tried Firefox and we couldn't get it to work. So I'm
that,
scared.
yeah, that is a problem. It's stupid on the web designer side, is what it is. It's stupid on the web designer side for not using open standards, and that's exactly what causes that. So you're right. You want to keep another browser just for that purpose.
Yeah, I tried downloading Firefox, which I kind of didn't want to because it's not compatible with our S4C site, but I couldn't get it to work, and we ended up going to a Zoom meeting, and I'm just scheduled for Zoom meeting because it was too big a hassle.
Sure.
I have posted in the chat a link for a page that is called HTML5 test. And
Yeah, I see that.
this page lists the not the compatible, how closely each of different browsers test when up against the HTML5 standards. And so you will see that Chrome does in fact have the highest rating, or it fits the standard, it meets the test to the highest degree of any of the other optional browsers. And this will come into play when you have a web page that has been developed using features of HTML5 that a browser just may not have incorporated yet. And so you may not, the buttons, the page will display differently on a different browser if it has less compatibility. Now, that's not to say that Chrome is the be-all end-all and you don't need anything else. Often, if Chrome isn't working correctly, you'll try a different browser and you'll find it works better. So it's a personal choice. They each operate slightly differently, but there are differences between browsers. You know, they're all fine professional browsers. You'll have fans of each of them, but there are differences. And this is kind of showing how one person's or one organization's view of how well a browser supports HTML5, which is the current standard, how they rate.
There's a neat feature inside of Safari. You can go into the Safari preferences and enable the developers menu. And it adds another menu option across the top with a whole slew of crap you'll never use. But if you go to a website that you're having problems trying to display stuff, rather than manually starting up Chrome or manually starting up Firefox, let's assume you've got those already, you can go up to the develop menu and you can say open page with. And so like my options right now from Safari are open page with Downy, with Evernote, with Firefox. I don't happen to have Chrome on here right now, with a whole bunch of older versions of Safari, if I still had those. So the nice thing is if I've got something that doesn't work in Safari, I can go to that develop menu, come down one notch to open page with, and click on Chrome. That starts up the Chrome browser and takes me to that exact same page. So that saves retyping in the URL and manually going over there and opening up Chrome to see. I think that's a really great feature. I believe Chrome and Firefox both have something similar to this develop menu to open up in other browsers.
Well,
I really like that.
In Chrome, you have a view menu. In that view menu, there's a developer menu item, and from there you can open up a developer tool. If you're on any web page and you do a Command-Shift-I, for instance, or it's a Command-Option-I, you'll get it'll change, and you'll see, oh my God, what happened?
Right, you get the break. It's split screen between what you're seeing and what's going on behind the background.
Right, and so those developer menus allow you tremendous amount of, oh my God, what is all this stuff? What do I do with it? How do I get out of here? Kind of thing. Because one of the things that I think also used to be more common than it is today is the ability to have your browser identify itself as a different browser. And for instance, when you are sometimes needing to access a banking's website, it'll say, oh, you need Internet Explorer. So you can go and say, hey, Chrome, advertise yourself as Internet Explorer, and then that lets you in and you can use that website.
Right.
So,
excuse me, I've got this all reminded me of a question I've got about my website when you're done with this, Robert.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. I recently changed my website host from whatchamacallit, GoDaddy over to HostGator because of crap that I won't get into with GoDaddy.
Oh, you mean Bend Over Daddy?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. As far as I'm concerned, they're a bunch of crooks. I had them hosting my websites for almost 20 years, and then they started to screw me over. So I changed over. But anyhow, since I changed over, I discovered that now you have to understand my website has not been updated since 2010, mainly because I haven't had a what do you call that type of program to edit a website? I forgot what it's called. Anyhow, it was written 100% in HTML. And the first thing I noticed when I got everything back up again was that on Safari, everything showed up exactly like it should. But when I went into Chrome, 2 of the photographs on the front page have placeholders there instead of the photographs.
Were they pictures of you, Bart?
No.
Oh, okay. That might have been a reason right there.
Okay, no. There wouldn't be me anyhow because the picture wouldn't have gotten that far because the camera lens would have broken in the process.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Okay. So anyhow, the only thing I can think of, and I'm not sure if these pictures were in fact in such a format, was that when I learned HTML, there were only 2 formats for photographs that you could post. One was JPEG and the other one was GIF. And the only thing that I'm thinking was, well, maybe these are GIF files.
See, Skippy's much better than GIF.
Oh, yeah, well, I wouldn't know. I'm not big into peanut butter. But anyhow, I'm wondering, could the problem be because these 2 photographs maybe are GIF, or would you think it's something else, Robert?
Well, what you've brought up is the evolution of browsers and also the security of the internet. And so when you have an older website, it has been designed using certain HTML coding. And over time, HTML coding evolves and grows. And so we have code at one point was just fine, and then what becomes what we call deprecated, and which means that we've stopped using that way of describing how you want this to display, and now we're going to start using this over here. And you can continue to use that deprecated code, but do recognize we've considered that outdated, and it's going to go away in the future. Now, so going forward, instead of 1, 2, 3 for heading levels, maybe it's heading levels ABC. I'm just making stuff up. I mean, there's so many that have evolved. But anyways, point is that as over time, browsers get bigger and bigger and bigger because they do things the new way, and then they allow for old code or deprecated code to also work. And so as they have multiple iterations of the ways to do things, they get larger. And for newer users to the computer, if you will, or in the interest of thinning down the size or the bloat and the speed of an application, some browsers will drop off and stop supporting old deprecated code. And then that makes for a faster browser. It doesn't have to go through as many iterations of tests to display something. And then you also have things like every browser has at some point decided it's not going to support Flash anymore. For your security, anything after this date, they're just not going to do it. And so different browsers drop support for certain technologies at different levels. So that's what you get into, that it works well in this one, but not in this one. Either the one that it doesn't work in, they haven't evolved to use the newest, latest, and greatest standards, or they've dropped off and let go of some old standards that have been deprecated, and that site hasn't been updated. So they really don't want to deal with the fact that you said that the font, the color of this text should be red, because that's not the way we define colors of text anymore. So it's an understandable reason why things change over time. It's a reason to use different browsers. It's a reason that does cause people to open up web pages in different browsers, older, newer, what have you. If you were trying to open up a MySpace, a MySpace web page, it probably would look a little bit different from what you remember it. So that's what that's all about, of old web pages that don't work like they used to. And it's not the browser's fault, because they've moved on for your safety and security kind of thing.
Well, 1 minute. If that was the cause of this, how do you explain the fact that all of the other pictures on the page in Chrome are displayed correctly, and it's only these two that are displayed wrong? Because the same code format and everything was used when I placed all the pictures on there.
Well, okay. So more specifically to your question of a particular picture, you're correct. At one point in time, there was very few graphic formats on the web, but that distinctly is one of the things that has evolved over time, is the number of graphic standards. But along with that is there are many different versions. For instance, there's a JPEG and a JPEG 2000, which many people might not care about the difference or anything else. And so you have a JPG and a .jpg2. So there's many different standards that have evolved, and what might have been how that particular file may have passed muster at one point, but at a later point, when you more closely examine the format of that file, it really wasn't correct as it first was viewed. So it looks good today, but when a closer inspection, it's not following the correct format, and thus it's not working today. The file may not have changed, but the test that it's compared against might be what's changing there.
Yeah, but Robert, I still think you're missing my point. Let's assume that all of these pictures are JPEG. As I say, there's the possibility that they were GIF, but I doubt it, okay? Now, I've got like 8 or 9 GIF files that were on that web page. 2 of them are not being displayed in Chrome. All of the others are being displayed properly. The only way they would have displayed in the first place was to be in the exact same format in terms of the HTML code, okay? In those days, remember, I was using a much older version of HTML. It was, in fact, I think it was very close to the original HTML code that I was using, okay? So in those days, it wasn't as if there's 3 or 4 different possible older versions where the code was different to do what I was doing, okay? It hadn't evolved beyond the original way of doing it.
Well, okay, but again, my point is that file, even though, let's say it's a JPEG, that file may not technically meet the standard that it should have when it was created. And in the old days, there was a lot more loosey-goosey kind of stuff. If it was close, it might work. And so I'm going to say that if you take that file, open it up with a graphic editor in today's world, open it up, and then resave it, it probably will then display correctly, because there was probably something just a little bit wiggy on that file that was good enough, but in today's standard, it doesn't meet the spec. It could be in the header. Often it's the header of a graphic file that tells everybody how that file, see, because when you're talking about graphic files, what you're talking about is the way they're compressed. A graphic file does not have a character or digit or an indication for every single pixel in that picture. It looks at that picture and analyzes it and says, okay, we're going to define this picture in this way, and it compresses it. And so in the old days, we allowed for less compression than others. For different programs would save them to different levels of compression. And so I'm betting that your file was just of an older compression type. And if you opened it, resaved it, it would be just fine. The browser is saying, I'm not going to bother with that file because it looks a little bit different than what it should. And it's the header, it's not the picture.
You're saying the 2 pictures out of 10 were compressed differently using the same code that the other 8 pictures were compressed in also.
That's what I have historically found, is that the file was acceptable at one time and can be viewed under old technology. And then you look at under today's technology, it's not. And if I open it and resave it, don't make a change, open it, resave it with today's up-to-date editor, it now works. And it's
Robert, as a matter of fact, I can't even think of what that program was called now, but in iWeb and in not Macromedia, but Go Live. In Go Live, and I believe EverWeb that I use now has that capability, that when you've built the page the way you want to, and then you want to preview it, it defaults to your default browser. But there's options to be able to preview it in Chrome and preview it in Firefox and preview it in any other browser that you've got without actually to see whether everything's being rendered properly.
Yeah, my old the program that I used once, because originally I wrote it in straight HTML, and then I got a Microsoft program that came that allowed me to automatically do this stuff WYSIWYG. And when I wrote the thing, that Microsoft program allowed you to do just that, preview it in different browsers.
And unfortunately, back in the day, you were not able to, when this all worked correctly, you weren't able to view it in today's browser, which didn't exist. That put it to the tests of today's browser.
That's true. That's true.
So, you know, two files will look identical and operate identical, even though they may not be identical, especially in the header. And I go to this point because a graphic file is all about compression. The web is evolved, and they want to load web pages quickly. And they know that that file is not going to be blown up, and you're not going to print a 5x8 picture of that. So let's just make it good enough to be able to display on a web page on a standard screen and have it done quickly. Speed is everything. People are very anxious and a lot of patience. And people are judged on speed. So there's been a tremendous amount of evolution of compression, and I'm going to bet that's what it's all about.
Okay, I'm going to take a look at that then.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and take a look at that and see if I can see any difference in the code between a picture that displays properly in the pictures.
Well, what you could do if you really want to get into it, like Bob has been apparently anxious to really get into this deeply, is take the file, make a copy of it, do an open and a save in today's graphic editor, and then do a file that actually compares the two, and then you'll see what has changed between the old and the new.
Okay.
That's how we determine and have learned that it's the headers that have changed.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep. All right, who's still awake? Anything else going on out there?
Well, I have to agree with Greg about liking Safari as my default browser. The only problem is the newest Safari I don't like, because you can only get the extensions from the App Store, and the extensions that they offer are worthless unless you probably pay for them, and I can't see having to pay for an extension on a browser.
Well, it depends what extensions are you talking about. I use Honey. I use 1Password. I use Downy for downloading video files and things like that. Those are 3 different extensions, and Downy, you pay for Downy itself, and they give you an extension. But in the case of Honey, which tries to find the best possible price from buying something from Amazon or anywhere else you're trying to buy from, it runs all kinds of codes and all that kind of crap in the background. Those I don't pay for. They just come with it.
Yeah, my favorite name of the browser is, I'm trying to remember the name of it, and I can't at the moment, so I got to launch another browser to see what it is here. Just a second.
Like DuckDuckGo, something like that?
Well, no, I use DuckDuck. I don't use their extension. I just use their website.
Right.
So, that's my default search engine. I'm looking at NoScript.
Okay, never
NoScript, it blocks a whole lot of garbage that comes in, and I mean, it works good on getting rid of all the ads and everything else. There's a few that come through,
sure,
but that's not bad. And then when I go into cookies, it must load like about 10 different Google cookies, and I don't want anything really to do with Google, so I try to block all that crap out.
Well, that's why I stopped using Chrome, and plus the fact Apple has optimized Safari over the last couple of versions to really horsepower when you need the horsepower, but back off when you don't need it, at least for laptops.
Right, but my point is on that, I'll use Chromium because it doesn't have all the Google BS in it, but I won't use Chrome. I basically use Firefox and Safari, but I still prefer Safari, but I run the older Safaris and I don't have that problem. So.
Right.
What is the current version of Safari?
13, I believe, isn't it?
Is Safari doing an auto update?
Yeah, it does do it. If you, it does do an auto.
No, it will. If you do an update on your system, it will. But I've kept my older systems, 10.13, 10.12. I haven't had that problem because I haven't allowed it to update Safari. So I haven't had that problem with the earlier versions. And those extensions still work good.
Are there specific extensions that you are desiring that are not working or not available?
Well, there's a lot. I like the script ones, and I've tried their non-paying ones, but I can't see paying $10 for an extension. It's ridiculous. If I run Firefox, I can get all the extensions I want for free. So, and you used to be able to get extensions from those people who manufacture them, but since Apple has kind of put a lid on that, you can only get them from the App Store. Well, that's why, they don't work, because I'll go in and look at my cookies and I've got 10 different Google things in there. I probably need to set it up in the router to block phoning home on it or something. So, but I just haven't gotten around to that.
I appreciate we all have our different levels of desires for privacy and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of room for us to play and have at it. So it's all a level of how much time and energy we want to put into this stuff. I'm always interested in hearing about it.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I just thought I'd mention that, you know, but I do have Chromium on here too, but, you know, I don't particularly care for it too much, but it does work okay. It's basically the same thing as Chrome. It just doesn't have all the Google's added crap in it. So.
Right.
That's a preference, isn't it? Optional crap.
Well, okay, now let's take that to the next level. If you, I work in the PC world as well as the Mac, and when
we feel sorry for you.
Yeah, thank you. When I'm working on a new HP or Dell or whatever like that, a new computer, the first application I run on that computer is called Decrapifier.
Decrapifier, I love it.
And that removes all of that trialware and all of that kind of stuff that you get that allows them to sell the computer so cheaply, because somebody has said, hey, you know, put this antivirus on there with a 6-month trial kind of stuff. And so, yeah, it recognizes the model and it says, okay, I know what model that is, and it knows all the extra stuff that you probably want to get removed.
Yeah, it's funny because I got a email the other day from my son, and I guess there's this utility that somebody came up with, and it's called Windows 10 I can't pronounce the word hardly. It's ameliorated. Anyway, what it does is well, what Microsoft has already done. They've blocked the websites for downloading the ISO on this. And what it does is you create a USB or a CD or DVD installer for Windows 10, and it strips everything out of there. It strips out updates, it strips out Cortina, it strips out everything that phones home to Microsoft. And apparently Microsoft found out about this, and they blocked all of his websites to go to download the ISOs. But he also has a tutorial how you can set it up yourself to use that. That way you can take everything out, or if there's a couple of those things that you want to use, you can leave them in there. But it was basically designed to just cut all the phoning home to Microsoft on Windows 10. And also, it also disabled activation, so you didn't even have to worry about activating it. And I think that's where Windows really woke up to block it.
Right. That was all that they cared about. They don't care if you strip out or Cortina or any of the extras. They're just not interested in people running the Windows operating system without a full and complete license. There you go.
Right. So anyway, yeah, it was pretty interesting though. Well, I'm already running Oh Shut Up Windows 10 on my Windows 10 version, which I hardly ever run. But it does a pretty good job, but it doesn't block all the phoning home stuff.
Okay, gotcha.
But anyway, enough of Windows 10. We'll go back to Mac.
There you go.
Anyway, but yeah, no, 1012, Safari 1012, I can still run the other extensions on it. So that's what I've basically been using, except for on 10. I'm running on my Hackintosh 1015 right now with my cheap $20 camera. So my video probably isn't the greatest.
Yeah, but we know what you look like in real life, Frank, so it's not really an issue.
I'm not much better, right?
Frank, are you working on an updated version of the Macintosh these days? I mean, the Hackintosh.
Well, yeah, I don't think I'm going to be going to Big Sur anytime soon on the Hackintosh with everything that's going on with that. There's a lot of changes on it. Some people have it up and running pretty good though.
Yeah, I'm still not at Big Sur, because if I do, then my Office, what is it, 7, I think it is, that I have on this thing won't work anymore, and I don't want to have to invest in another subscription.
I got you on that. I just run LibreOffice. Because LibreOffice is a pretty darn good open source all-in-one Office package.
All right, well, what we're going down is the path of needing to run older software on newer operating systems, and Catalina was the breaking point for that, which many people chose to solve with a Parallels and running a Mojave in Parallels, and being able to then install your pre-Catalina applications or your non-64-bit applications there.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Robert, there's some rumors out that says the next Macintosh operating system will actually have the ability built in to allow you to, instead of all the weird keyboard combinations we have for choosing which drive to boot up to, or this combination of keys to restore, or this combination of keys to go into safe mode, they'll be like you'll hold down one key and it'll get you into an interactive in-between mode that you can do all that crap from one key, so you only have to memorize one key combination. And one of the options it'll have is the ability to put older operating systems on the Mac without much of a hassle, to be able to boot directly into them to be able to use that software.
I'm going to bet that doesn't ever show up.
Well, then I guess you go back to using VMs.
Well, it's a simple matter that Apple has always been of a mind to, we're moving forward and we're going to leave that old stuff behind. Because if Apple were to allow you to install older operating systems, there's really nothing in it for Apple, if I may. For them to have to install what essentially is something which is a virtual machine that then can run older code. But what does that do for Apple? People, there is that answer for those people that really need it, want it, gotta have it, and that is running a Parallels. But what I thought you were going the direction of is that the next operating system is going to have a difference that is going to cause Parallels to be unable to run, and that would be due to Apple actually coming out with a different processor, a non-Intel processor.
Right, the Apple Silicon stuff, an A14 or whatever.
Exactly, which would cause a total rewrite of Parallels that might not then have what might not then become real. Parallels might not carry forward. So that's the ticket that I'm most concerned about. Not that Apple might attempt to allow older operating systems. By the way, make this throw it out there. Is anybody running Parallels with an and jumping back and forth between jumping the clipboard back and forth between their standard machine and their virtual machine? Anybody having any issues on the clipboard?
Okay. I don't know if there's anybody on that's running Parallels right now, is there?
Yeah, I haven't had a need for it for a couple of years now. So,
well, I use an external drive, Mojave, in my 34-bit apps. So I just hold down the Option key and switch between the external drive. And
right, but you're booting directly into another operating system. You're not running a virtual operating system.
Right.
Right, and I appreciate that as a path, but for myself, I'm using the Command Tab that you switch between open applications. I just Command Tab into my Mojave environment, and I Command Tab back into my Catalina environment. It's just another application, if you will. So I need that ease of use because I just need to go over there, do two things, in 5 seconds, 10 seconds worth of time, and then jump back out. So booting to a new environment would not be satisfactory in my particular situation. So.
Well, that old 8600 that I bought from you a long time ago, that's running OS 10.4 on it.
Yeah, I just merely need to work in a non-64-bit. That was the evolution. That was the breaking point. And maybe in another year, I'll be able to drop that. I've got a couple of apps that are in the process of being updated, and they're just not yet ready. So there you go.
But that Rosetta 2 that they're using for Big Sur to be able to do the transition between Intel and Apple's processor, they say that thing's going to be really powerful. So it's only going to be available, for 2 years, because that's their timeline for changing over.
Yeah. Well, I don't typically, I've grown up with so much evolution, and in my particular situation, it's part of my life is to learn something new and different, and try to remember 10% of the past, because people will inevitably drag me back. But fortunately, Google's my friend for all of those things. How did that work?
Yeah, thank God for that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Okay.
So, but.
All right. Well, if nobody has anything else for the future, I can take that off my list. I have nothing learned on that. I'll just stay with all the other junk I'm figuring out. Anybody has any other problems of significance?
I've got something that you consider for,
I've got a call I've got to take. I'm going to quote it myself out for a moment.
Okay, Greg, I've got something that might be considered for a future meeting. Is this G5 that the cellular companies are coming up with? The only reason I bring it up is not because of my iPhone, which is, an older iPhone, but the other, last month I got the bill from ADT for our alarm services, and the bill went up significantly. And then I realized that, hey, they had a couple months before told me that they had to upgrade some hardware in my system so that it would run on 5G, or else they wouldn't be able to communicate with my alarm system anymore.
Oh, that's horseshit. Excuse my language, that's bullshit.
Well, anyhow, they
thank you for cleaning that up, Greg.
Yeah, big difference, huh?
My gut feeling was that basically that 5G is basically for the cell phone companies' benefit, so that they can run, have more bandwidth and have less equipment in order to provide their service, and that it certainly wasn't to benefit me in the slightest in terms of my alarm service. But I'm wondering, is there really a benefit for people in terms of for their internet service and everything else, and their cell phone service to have 5G, or is the whole 5G thing purely for the benefit of the cell phone companies?
Mostly what you're saying, the latter. There's a couple of good articles out there on YouTube by Renee Ritchie. So you can type in Renee Ritchie 5G, and you'll get the video where he kind of explains the benefits of 5G and the lack of the reason Apple may or may not go to 5G in this next iteration coming out in a few weeks. It's really kind of interesting. 5G benefits a specific niche, but it's a hype. I mean, right now on my iPhone 11 Pro, it says 5GE, which is a version of LTE compatibility. My understanding. Pardon?
AT&T says the same thing on one of the phones I have.
Yeah,
It
which
says
is kind of
5G.
it makes they're selling you something that doesn't really exist. Is really what it
Right.
boils down
That's
to.
an iPhone, so iPhone doesn't support 5G, but they're saying it does.
Well,
Well,
okay.
my understanding is the 5GE makes it compatible with 5G, but not at 5G speeds.
Okay,
Right.
no. Okay, let me make clear on this. 5GE is a name that AT&T is using to imply that they're using 5G. It has nothing to do with 5G. It is
It's
only
marketing,
a
is what
name.
you're saying.
Pardon
It's
me?
marketing. It's marketing.
Total marketing. Total marketing. There's no part of 5GE that has anything to do with 5G.
But it looks good to people who have those phones.
Absolutely, absolutely. You are buying the latest and greatest, you think, when you see 5GE. 5G is has potential. Apple's next phone will not have 5G. 5G has a potential. That's all it has at the moment. The range of 5G is very, very, very short. When they are running trials, when Verizon wants to go in and show off 5G, they'll go into an enclosed football stadium or baseball stadium and install 5G antennas. And they have been unable to install enough antennas to have coverage in every part of that stadium.
Yeah.
And so when they show it off, they say, oh, look at all these speeds. And then, but wait a second, over in this section, you can't get it at all. Yeah, we know. We don't have enough antennas in that direction. It's a crazy potential at this moment. And that's about as far as it is. It's
To me, my understanding is the standards are really kind of on the open side, where there's going to be all kinds of 5G improvements, but probably 1 or 2 years down the road.
Well, it's not so much the improvements, it's the coverage. Not until they have, and because, okay.
Robert, I've actually heard where some people say, well, unless you're standing right underneath the tower, it pretty well sucks.
Exactly. But as you've recognized, if you are a Spectrum customer or a Comcast or whatever they are calling themselves today,
or T-Mobile, they're
right,
hyping 5G like it's going out of style.
What they're doing is they're turning everybody's home router into a public Wi-Fi hotspot.
Yep.
So that when you go down the street, you have hotspots at every single residence that you're playing off of. And so they're saying that your router is protected, it's security, no one can get into it. We're just going to take this section of this equipment, branch off of it over here, and make use of your power, your electricity, and our connection to that to use. We're going to borrow this little section and use it as a hotspot. And so the evolution of 5G is going to be in those routers that they're going to give to everybody who has cable. And so everybody is going to be that antenna that you need to connect to have the coverage that they want. So
what about DSL? Is that the same?
No,
what about what?
is landline. I have DSL. DSL is landline.
Okay.
Old system.
That's what I have.
DSL is one of the oldest upgrades from standard POTS system communication or modem, analog modem. DSL was digital signal, digital subscriber. And today, DSL has evolved that you could do naked DSL, and that's DSL without having a hard line, a phone number that you could actually talk on. And then they've also recently come out with bonded DSL that allows 2 DSL lines to be together to combine and increase your bandwidth. Because DSL is limited in speed based upon the distance from you to the central office. I have a customer site in La Habra that is 13,000 feet from the CO. And because of that, the maximum speed they can get on DSL is about 0.9 megabits. and cable isn't at that location. So what we did was we ended up using a 4G modem and said the hell with you. But DSL is an old technology. Having evolved from that, you have your UVerse, which is another like 5GE. UVerse is a made-up name that AT&T uses to describe their bandwidth. And UVerse actually can be one of many different technologies behind the scene, and they really don't speak to what technology you're using when you get if you subscribe to UVerse. They have UVerse over DSL that uses DSL. They have UVerse that uses fiber. But that way they just get to sell one name and give you whatever speed they can give you and charge you whatever's appropriate in your area for your usage of UVerse. But
I can add something to that. On my DSL system, it's on the landline. I've got two numbers on the thing, so it's the maximum. We're about 2.5 to 3 blocks from where a junction box is between a fiber optic cable and the hardwired cable. They don't plan to upgrade us to full fiber optics at all in our area, although other parts of the county have the service. The maximum speed that I am guaranteed is 45 megabits per second download, 6 megabits per second upload on my system. Now, my daughter has FiOS. She has fiber optics right to the house. I don't know what the speed is on that, but I mean, she clicks on a URL and instantly she's got the website on. But only areas that have fiber optics right up to your house and into the modem can really do a true super high speed.
Up to gigabit.
Right. And it's interesting. There's a lot of games you can play with this kind of stuff because there's a optical network terminal, ONT as they call it. It's a device that they install at your home, and they run the fiber up to that, and then that device converts it to Ethernet, so that you don't have to run fiber in your home, but
or cable,
or cable. But it's not available everywhere, and but it's a option that if you have fiber in your area, you can take advantage of sometimes to get faster speeds.
Is it true that you can't get 5G unless you have a 5G cell phone?
That would be correct.
Apple's coming out with 5G in the new iPhone 12.
You believe that?
No, that's what the rumors said.
Okay, well that's correct, and I'll put $1 on the other side of the table, and give me your address so I can come by.
Well, they are going to have Qualcomm modems in them, not the Intel modems. So the Qualcomm modem is a better modem because they've somehow kissed Qualcomm's ass and managed to work a deal out to get them on the 12 series. But hopefully, by the time the 13s come out, a year from now, they'll have Apple modems in them.
One thing I want to ask you about, Robert, even if we had true 5G connected to a 5G system in our cell phone, and assuming that Verizon worked out all the bugs about the thing so they had the range and everything necessary in 5G, from the perspective of the user of that cell phone, would there be anything different or any real advantage to it at this point, considering how high speed everything is already?
I'm going to say no, because you can already view a Netflix movie, and given the size of the phone, the resolution is phenomenal. The size of the phone dictates the fact that you have a limited resolution. So there's a limited amount of information they have to send down the pipe. If it was on an 80-inch television, they'd have to send more information down the pipe because there's more pixels involved. But the 5G isn't actually, you're correct. The 5G is not really going to give the average person, the average situation, much benefit. Now, I was traveling, as I was saying, up in Oregon, and there was many areas where when I was at the campground, I had essentially no real signal. If I walked, 200 yards away, I had some signal. Now, that's a situation where 5G right now, as it's designed, needs more antennas. So theoretically, I would not be any better off with 5G in that particular situation because it's a function of there's not likely there's going to be a 5G antenna at each campground. But if 5G antennas were able to be installed, for instance, on motorhomes or that kind of thing, or hotspots, you theoretically might be able to pick up, no, not even then. So in general, I'm going to say no. The 5G benefits, the reason why they're going to 5G is they can compress more users into the same amount of frequency space. And that's cheaper for the broadcast companies. It will be faster, but it will be, there's a limited amount of spectrum. When they got the 5G spectrum, they borrowed it from another airspace that wasn't being used, or there was the fewest amount of conflicts. It actually got into the weather, National Weather Service frequencies, but the average user is not going to see any reason for it. I would not, at this point, I would not see any reason to pay any extra money because a phone was doing 5G.
So in other words, what's probably going to happen is they're going to raise everybody's phone bill on the grounds that they've got 5G. But in fact, 5G is a total ripoff for the consumer.
Well, they're going to advertise as a faster speed, and who you never can be too fat, too skinny, or too rich, or no, too skinny or too rich. There's something else in there, and many people you can believe you can never have enough hard drive space or memory, or too fast of a modem, and so some people have to have more and more. And I had a customer ask me this. She said she wanted a new MacBook Pro, and for herself, I said, don't bother upgrading the processor speed. The standard is fine. Don't bother upgrading the memory. Don't bother upgrading the hard drive speed. Standard issue is perfectly fine for you. And it will be. She will never notice or care about any of those aspects. But some people want faster and faster. When I buy a computer, I often do upgrade a couple of the items. But even myself, with being a heavy user, most of the time, I have no complaints with the standard issue machine.
Hey guys, we're getting close to noon, and I'm gonna have to bug out of here myself. I've got a couple of things I got to run today, so
there is that.
I gotta say,
good.
Yeah, I gotta say goodbye too, because I've got a net on the radio in 5 minutes that I'm net control on today. So I'll say bye to everybody. And
all right, guys. So we'll talk to you all in about a month. Think of your questions, or if you got anything, try to send it to me or to Robert, and we'll see if we can't talk about them next month.
Excellent idea.
Robert, thanks for your help. Appreciate it. Hopefully we'll have the new OS to be able to talk to, and hopefully I'll have it on a machine that we can at least look at it. So,
love it.
All right, y'all.
All right.
Have a good remaining weekend. Take care.
Say hi to Marcia for me.
I'll do that, Janine.
Diane.
Everybody
Oh,
have,
Diane. Sorry, Diane. I'll do that.
everybody have a good week.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.